Chapter 407. Compared to the high-altitude parachuting that he had done during his special training, this event seemed like a child's play. It was merely a 30-meter-high parachute jump, but it didn't hurt him at all. Children, on the other hand, were different. Whether it was their physical or mental state, they were much weaker. Therefore, Xiao Yichen's screams and laughter could be heard throughout the entire process. When the game ended, Xiao Yichen was still in a state of shock, but he still wanted to continue. He felt that the Tower of Babel was very exciting and fun. Most children would naturally want to try something fun again, and he was no exception. Thus, Mu Yaja played with him again. When they walked down the Tower of Babel for the second time, Xiao Yichen held Mu Yaja's hand and danced around excitedly. He kept explaining the beautiful scenery that he had seen during the process of ascending. In an instant, it was as if all the unhappiness from before had vanished into thin air. Children were just that innocent and cute. They wouldn't remember anything for too long. After that, Mu Yaja seemed to have realized that he had neglected Xiao Yichen by always carrying Song Enshi in his arms. Feeling guilty, he continued to carry Xiao Yichen in his arms and didn't put him down. His energy was astonishing. Xiao Yichen was much heavier than Song Enshi, but he continued to carry him in his arms and couldn't bear to put him down. Every time Song Enshi opened her arms and asked Mu Yaja to carry her, Xiao Yichen would immediately wrap his arms around Mu Yaja's shoulders. This was a silent declaration of his exclusive rights. Every time this happened, it was Song Enshi's turn to pout and stomp her feet in anger. She was in a bad mood. However, no matter how unhappy she was, no matter how much she cried, Mu Yaja never hugged her again. At least for today, he had to accompany the little guy. Otherwise, it would be meaningless for him to rush back to celebrate his birthday with him. Xiao Yichen's happiness was the most important thing right now. Nothing else mattered to him. Song Enshi looked at Xiao Yichen, who was once again occupying Mu Yaja's arms. Her expression was so ugly that it was as if she had swallowed a few flies. Every time she finished a game, she wanted to be hugged by Mu Yaja, but Xiao Yichen refused to leave Mu Yaja's arms. There was nothing she could do. Song Enshi's face was contorted in anger. Xiao Yichen felt his mood lighten up when he saw her deflated expression. Song Enshi saw this and was jealous. Therefore, when everyone was taking a break, she mentioned that she wanted to eat dessert. Mu Yaja wanted to buy some desserts for Xiao Yichen, so he asked them to wait in their seats and rush to the dessert station. Song Enya gave a few more words of advice before following closely behind. Only the two little lads were left on the other side. Xiao Yichen was bored, so he took out his favorite toy and fiddled with it. Song Enshi also wanted it when she saw it, so she reached out to snatch it. Xiao Yichen nimbly dodged her little paw and said unhappily, "Didn't your mommy teach you manners? How can you casually take other people's things?" Song Enshi snorted. "TSK. Cheapskate. Drink some cold water. Do you think I care about your lousy toy?" "I don't want you to care about it, either. You're the cheapskate." Xiao Yichen stuck out his tongue and made a funny face. This time, the little lass was completely enraged. "Humph. I think you're obviously jealous of me. You're jealous that Uncle Mu likes me more than you. What nonsense are you talking about?" Xiao Yichen sneered. "Daddy clearly likes me the most. Who do you think you are?" Chapter 408. With her hands on her hips, Song Enshi pointed at him and announced the truth, arrogantly. Xiao Yichen was a little angry. He was supposed to be confident, but when he thought of his daddy's doting gaze when he hugged Song Enshi, he felt a stab in his heart. Indeed, he felt a little uncomfortable. Even the little one's tone was not firm enough. "You're spouting nonsense." "How am I spouting nonsense? Didn't you see it just now? Uncle Mu likes me a lot. Don't you dare deny it." Song Enshi was spoiled rotten at home, so her words were unforgiving and aggressive. Xiao Yichen said angrily, "Who do you think you are? You're a member of the Song family, an outsider. How can Daddy like you? I'm the one Daddy likes the most. That's me. Look at the birthday present he gave me yesterday. It's very cool, isn't it?" As he spoke, he flashed his smartwatch at her. His good-looking eyebrows raised proudly. This was considered a show-off. Song Enshi's attention was immediately drawn to the watch on his wrist. She had never seen such a novel thing before, so she leaned over to take a look. Xiao Yichen pushed her head to the side with a look of disgust. "Don't come over. Go away. Why did you push me? Song Enshi was a little angry. She clenched her little fists and yelled at him. Because you're ugly. Humph, you ugly freak. Xiao Yichen sneered with his poisonous tongue. He did not expect that this sentence would completely enrage Song Enshi. He actually called her an ugly freak. Although the little girl was only 5 years old, she still had a heart for beauty. Song Enshi had been the apple of the Song family's eye since she was born. She had always been held in the palm of their hands, afraid that she would break or melt in the mouth. She had been doted on since she was young. Everyone's praise for her was nothing more than beautiful, cute, obedient, sweet, and so on. Therefore, she had always thought that she was cute and pretty. However, Xiao Yichen's sudden appearance of an ugly person inevitably angered her. In a fit of anger, Song Enshi pounced on Xiao Yichen and bit his wrist with all her might. It was as if she wanted to bite off a piece of flesh from his arm. Xiao Yichen did not expect her to bite him. In the midst of the pain, his subconscious reaction was to push her away forcefully. But one had to know that he was different from other children. How much strength could other boys his age have? He was a child who had gone through hellish training in the special training camp. Although his strength was not great, he could still easily lift the Barrett M99. Song Enshi was caught off guard by this push. She staggered a few steps back and tripped over her own feet. Then she fell on her face in a sorry state. Xiao Yichen hurriedly looked at his arm where she had bitten him. There were 2 rows of deep bite marks. There was no blood, but they were very deep. It was obvious that she had bitten him hard. He furrowed his brows in anger. When he raised his head, he saw Song Enshi hugging her head and not moving at all. After a brief moment of silence, Song Enshi sat on the ground and hugged the back of her head. She opened her mouth and let out an earth-shattering wail. It was unknown where the tears came from or if it was really that painful, but Song Enshi broke down. Big drops of tears fell from her eyes like pearls from a broken necklace. Chapter 409. Xiao Yichen was bewildered by the sudden turn of events. He did not do it on purpose, nor did he use much force. It was just a subconscious reaction from the pain. Why was this brat so weak? Some kind-hearted tourists immediately went forward to help her up, but when they touched the back of her head, they were shocked to find their hands stained with blood. Ah, her head is bleeding. Hurry and call an ambulance. Yes, it's a little serious. Xiao Yichen took a step back in shock when he saw this. He did not expect things to turn out this way. He did not use much force, and he did not do it on purpose. He remembered that he had controlled his strength. Coincidentally, Mu Yaja and Song Enya were returning from buying desserts when they heard the girl's childish and hoarse cries from afar. Song Enya's heart skipped a beat and she immediately rushed over. She saw Song Enshi sitting on the ground, crying her heart out. A few tourists around her tried to comfort her, but to no avail. Enshi. Song Enya was so frightened that her face turned pale. She threw the desserts aside and hurried over to carry her daughter. This hug was terrible. When the child saw her family, it was inevitable for her to be pretentious. Song Enshi cried even harder and louder. She pointed at Xiao Yichen, who was standing motionlessly at the side, and complained, He bullied me. He pushed me and called me ugly. Boo-hoo. And she is in so much pain. When Song Enya saw her crying hysterically, she glanced around and saw the fresh blood on the hands of passers-by. Alarmed, she touched the back of Song Enshi's head. When her fingertips came into contact with sticky blood, she was so frightened that her heart skipped a beat. Mu Yaja walked over, completely unaware of what had happened. When he saw Song Enshi crying sadly and Song Enya's hands stained with blood, his face turned cold. What happened? He asked. At the man's question, Song Enshi, who was in Song Enya's arms, cried even harder. It's all Mu Yichen's fault. It was Mu Yichen who pushed me. Sob, sob, sob. He said I was ugly and that Uncle Mu didn't like me. He even pushed me. Song Enya's heart ached as she glared fiercely at Xiao Yichen. However, Xiao Yichen did not cower under her gaze and glared back at her fiercely. Song Enya was infuriated to see him glaring back at her with such self-righteousness. Unfortunately, Xiao Yichen was Mu Yaja's favorite child after all. He wasn't her child, so she had no right to scold him. Therefore she could only glare at him. All of a sudden, all the accusations were directed at Xiao Yichen. He was stunned and suddenly lost his footing. For a moment, he didn't know what was going on, but he was inexplicably condemned by everyone. It wasn't like that. She wasn't telling the truth. What was going on just now? Xiao Yichen's mind was in a mess for a moment. Subconsciously, he walked to Mu Yaja's side and carefully grabbed the man's broad hand. In response, Mu Yaja held his hand tightly. Xiao Yichen raised his head pitifully, only to see Mu Yaja looking at him with a clear face. What happened? Yichen, give me an explanation. Daddy, Xiao Yichen hurriedly opened his mouth and said aggrievedly, I didn't push her. Chapter 4:10. It was just a subconscious defensive reaction under the immense pain. Song Enya was livid. Her beautiful face showed a hint of anger. Yichen, you're too much. I didn't reprimand you for Brother Mu's sake. And she is already in this state. Her head is bleeding, yet not only are you not apologizing, you're even trying to shirk responsibility. I've always heard that the Muse nurture their children's sense of responsibility. If you have half of your father's sense of responsibility, you won't say such things. As if she could not vent her anger, she walked up to him with Song Enshi in her arms and asked aggressively, Are you saying that Enshi fell down herself and framed you for it? Our Enshi won't lie. Besides, she's fine. Why would she fall down for no reason? Are you saying that she's lying? Little Yichen's face flushed red from this aggressive interrogation. His entire smiling face was flushed red. He pursed his lips and clenched his fists, pretending to be calm. I didn't push her. I didn't push her. I'm a man. I won't lie. Song Enya said, You call yourself a man, but shouldn't a man be responsible? Since you said that you're not lying, then tell me, how did my Enshi fall down? Boo-hoo. Sis, he's lying. He's clearly the one who pushed me. In his arms, Song Enshi's cries grew louder and louder. She wailed loudly as tears rolled down her cheeks. Xiao Yichen was so angry that he lost his rationality. She was the one who bit me first. It's her. She was the one who bullied me first. How can you bully her just because she bit you first? Song Enya's face darkened. You're the older brother. And she is insensible. Shouldn't you give in to her? Oh! Xiao Yichen was at a loss for words. Why? Why did she question him like this? Was it because Song Enshi was the one who suffered the most in the end, so all the mistakes deserve to be forgiven? He was only acting in self-defense. Even if he lost control of his strength in the end and hurt her, should he be condemned by everyone? Moreover, he clearly remembered that he hadn't used much strength earlier. He really hadn't used much strength. If he were to use force, he would know his limits. With the strength he had exerted just now, Song Enshi would at most be pushed to the side. She wouldn't fall so hard. But if he said that she fell down by herself, would anyone believe him? Would Daddy believe him? Xiao Yichen looked at Mu Yaja worriedly, only to see his cold gaze land on Song Enshi's face. Seeing that the situation was a mess, he suddenly said, Have you said enough? As soon as he spoke, the scene immediately quieted down. Perhaps men were born to be kings. As long as he opened his mouth and ordered everyone to be quiet, everyone would have to be quiet. Because of his words, the situation was stabilized a little. There's no point in arguing about this now. The most important thing now is to send the child to the hospital and take an X-ray to see if there are any major problems. Sigh. What should we do? And she has never suffered like this. Xiao Yichen was so angry that he didn't say anything. What was this little bit of suffering? He had suffered all kinds of hardships in the special training camp. Such a small injury would at most require 2 stitches. Mu Yaja squatted down and held Xiao Yichen's shoulders as he said in a deep voice, Yichen, apologize to your sister first, okay? Chapter 4:11. No. Xiao Yichen insisted. Mu Yaja's face instantly turned cold. You won't even listen to Daddy anymore? Daddy's words are wrong. I won't listen. Xiao Yichen felt aggrieved, but on the surface, he still looked very determined. How could he admit defeat in front of the sisters? I won't apologize for something I didn't do. Then tell Daddy. Did you push your sister? Mu Yaja asked seriously. Xiao Yichen was speechless for a moment before he forced out 2 words. I pushed. Then he nervously explained, That's because she bit me first, and I didn't use. Since you pushed her, shouldn't you apologize when she fell? Mu Yaja guided him patiently. He did not care what other children did wrong. He only cared about his own child's sense of responsibility. Even if he did not push her hard, he still pushed her. Xiao Yichen was partly responsible for her fall, so he wanted Xiao Yichen to lower his head and apologize. You should reflect on your mistake. Xiao Yichen had always taken Mu Yaja's words as an order. He wanted to quickly resolve this matter, so even if he was unwilling, he still obediently lowered his head in Song Enchi's direction. I'm sorry, Enchi. It's my fault. I shouldn't have pushed you. However, his apology did not make Song Enchi stop crying. Still, the only thing he could do was apologize. Now that he had done this, whether or not he was forgiven was no longer his concern. Uncle Mu, give me a hug. Song Enchi ignored Xiao Yichen's apology and only opened her arms to him with teary eyes. This time, her request for a hug was not something Mu Yaja could refuse. Song Enchi seemed to have achieved her ultimate goal when he took her from Song Enya's arms. Her crying stopped abruptly. Xiao Yichen felt a little sullen, but more than that, he was filled with anger. When he looked up, he met Song Enchi's eyes, which secretly flashed with a hint of success. He clenched his fists so tightly that they cracked. The person in charge of Laji Holdings rushed over. On this day, Li Hanlin happened to be inspecting a new project in Fairy Tale Valley. When he heard that a child was in trouble, he immediately contacted the medical staff and rushed over. When he saw the people in front of him, the corners of his eyes twitched slightly. Headmaster Li? Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes, clearly recognizing him at a glance. Haha, what a coincidence. Li Hanlin said awkwardly. Hello, Chairman Mu. The medical staff came over with a stretcher. They wanted to take Song Enchi from Mu Yaja's arms, but little Enchi refused to let go. She insisted that Mu Yaja carry her, so they had no choice but to compromise. Uncle Mu, will you accompany me? Okay, be good. Uncle Mu will accompany you. Okay. With Uncle Mu by my side, I'm not afraid of anything. Song Enchi sobbed, looking very pitiful. Xiao Yichen stood alone on the spot until he saw Mu Yaja carrying Song Enchi into the ambulance. In a moment of panic, he hurriedly asked, Daddy, aren't you going to celebrate my birthday with me? Let's get in the car together. We'll accompany Enchi to the hospital first. But today is my birthday. Xiao Yichen argued with a forced smile. Mu Yaja's eyes turned cold, and his voice deepened. I'll accompany you to play next time. Let's forget about today. Forget it. How could he forget it? Xiao Yichen stubbornly refused to budge and stammered, I don't want to. Chapter 4:12. What? I said I don't want to. I don't want a next time. I only want today. I want today. Daddy, play with me. Xiao Yichen vented all the grievances and bitterness in his heart. He rarely cried, but when he blurted out these words, his eyes couldn't help but moisten. What next time? Was there really going to be a next time? But why? It was his birthday today. He had been looking forward to it. It was rare that his daddy was willing to play with him. Yichen, don't be so willful. I want to stay and play. I don't want to accompany her to the hospital. I don't want to. Xiao Yichen pouted. His willfulness provoked Mu Yaja's displeasure, so he coldly said, Then play by yourself. Anyway, he had already informed the person in charge of Fairy Tale Valley beforehand. Even if he wasn't around, there would be someone to accompany the little guy. If he wanted to play, then he would let him play to his heart's content in the amusement park. With a bang, the car door slammed shut. The ambulance screeched away. Xiao Yichen stood rooted to the ground, dumbfounded. Even after the ambulance had left for a long time, he still couldn't react. Did his daddy abandon him? Did he not want him anymore? He seemed to have been a little willful just now. But was he going to leave him alone to punish him? But what did he do wrong? Why did he have to punish him like this? It was obvious that Song Enchi had played some tricks to snatch his daddy away from him. He should have obediently gotten into the car and shouldn't have been so willful to say that he wanted to stay and play. However, he was holding back his anger and was unwilling to compromise. It wasn't because he was obsessed with his birthday, but because he felt wronged. Why was everything he had been looking forward to being destroyed so easily? He clearly didn't do anything wrong and had a clear conscience, but his daddy didn't believe him. What could he do? Xiao Yichen hung his head low, and his mouth twitched uncontrollably. He wanted to cry, but he who had never shed tears held it in. As if in a fit of pique, he fiercely wiped away the tears at the corner of his eyes with the back of his hand. When he looked up, his expression was still cold and silent. "Leave, all of you. Let's go, let's all go." Even if he was alone, he could still enjoy himself. Li Hanlin walked up to Xiao Yichen and squatted down beside him. He was amazed that the little guy looked so much like President Yun. Normally, twins rarely looked so similar. "Young Master Mu." Li Hanlin smiled and stuck his face close to Mu Siju, trying to please him. Xiao Yichen responded with a cold look. "Don't touch me." Without Mu Yaja around, he seemed to have returned to his old Xiao Yichen, cold, stern, and taciturn. Xiao Yichen picked up his backpack and walked towards his next target. He said, "I'm going to play by myself. Don't follow me." How could Li Hanlin listen to him? Before Mu Yaja left, he had specifically asked him to take good care of this child. Thus, Nanny Li said, "Send a few people to follow him secretly and protect him. Don't let him find out." Yes. Thus, the group of bodyguards followed Xiao Yichen in a grandiose but cautious manner. How could Xiao Yichen, who had undergone special training since he was a child, not notice? However, he didn't have the heart to care so much. Chapter 4:13. Since we're here, let's have some fun. Therefore, the Tower of Babel, the Fire Beacon Wheel, the Ice Mountain Snow Region, whatever was exciting, he sat on the roller coaster and used the momentum of the roller coaster to vent all the dissatisfaction and grievances in his heart in the form of screams. It was as if he could only feel better this way. He had never been a weak child, but today's incident had left a scar in his heart. He had always thought that girls were innocent and romantic, but Song Enchi's actions had completely overturned his understanding of girls. "I hate girls. I hate Song Enchi." Xiao Yichen's body swayed slightly when he alighted from the roller coaster. Now that the sun was gradually getting hotter, he raised his fair little face and looked at the weather. Now that the sun was shining brightly, the temperature was rising, but no matter how bright the sun was, it was as if it could not shine into his heart. No matter how he played, he did not have the happiness and joy he had when his daddy was with him. "I hate birthdays the most," Xiao Yichen muttered as he sat alone on the bench, hugging his small school bag tightly. "Shusha, it's been hard on you today." After the photo shoot, Mu Shi sent Yun Shishir out of the building and said with a smile, "I'll send you the photo shoot when it's done." Thanks." She suddenly thought of something and quickly asked, "Oh right. Do you have Weibo?" "Weibo? Don't tell me you don't use Sina Weibo." I don't have the habit of using Weibo," Yun Shishir admitted honestly. "I'm usually very busy, so..." "Haha. No matter how busy you are, you should still have the time to check Weibo. You're not like my sister, who has a child and spends all her time with him, so you don't even have the time to check Weibo." Mu Shi did not know whether to laugh or cry. Yun Shishir's expression froze. She had hit the nail on the head. In the past, she was very busy with work and spent all her time at home with Yu, so she did not even have an account on Weibo. However, her assistant did not know about this, so she had to keep the child a secret for now. As for her private life, she wanted to keep it a secret. At least, she did not want Yu's life to be disturbed in the future. Hence she smiled and said, I'll apply for one when I get back." Let me know when you're done. I'll get you AV certification." Mu Shi then waved her hand. "Wait for my notice." When Yun Shishir hurried home, Yun Tianyu was already eagerly waiting for her in the living room. When he saw her return, his little face seemed to glow with brilliance in an instant. Initially, he thought that his mommy would be very busy, and he did not know if she would be able to keep their promise. Hence, he did not have high hopes for her. Therefore, as he sat on the sofa and read the financial newspaper, Yu did not have much hope. However, when he saw that Yun Shishir had returned earlier than the agreed time, his usually calm heart actually trembled a little with excitement. "Mommy!" Yu's face seemed to be covered by a layer of sunshine as he ran 2 rounds around his mother and threw himself into her embrace. "Mommy, Yu, I love you." "Good boy. You must have waited for a long time." Yun Shishir's unhappiness seemed to have dissipated at the sight of him. Chapter 4:14. This baby had such an ability. When she saw his smiling face, it was as if it could drive away all the gloominess. It was very healing. No. Mommy came back very early." As he spoke, Yu pulled Yun Shirshir into the room. He took out 2 sets of casual clothes and said, "Mommy, let's change into this. It's a mother and son outfit." The mother and son outfits were pink-blue in color. They had the same design, but the sizes were different. It was a mother and son outfit from Laji Holdings. This outfit was designed by Yu himself. There was a heartwarming drawing of a father, a mother, and a cute child in the middle. This unique and childish drawing was very popular. He had wanted to draw this drawing for his mommy, but he felt that his drawing was not good enough. Hence, he had been hiding it and did not dare to take it out for fear that his mommy would not like it. One time, he had a whimsical idea and decided to use this drawing on the outfit. He did not expect it to be very popular. "This outfit is... Oh, Grandpa bought it." Yu said, "I was shopping with Grandpa yesterday. I saw this mother and son outfit and thought it was very interesting." "Yes. The drawing on this outfit is very nice. It's very childlike," Yun Shirshir said with a smile. "Really?" Yu blushed shyly. Mommy said that the drawing was nice, which meant that she liked his drawing. Yu covered his mouth and laughed secretly. He raised his eyebrows proudly. Because of Yun Shirshir's praise, he felt sweet and happy in his heart. Yun Shirshir changed into the outfit and then helped Yu change into the outfit. Yun Shirshir liked to use her brain when it came to children's outfits. Yu was also very cute. Hence, whenever she brought him out, he would always attract a lot of attention. He attracted a lot of attention. She tied a British-style scarf around his neck, paired it with a pair of British flag-designed sneakers, and put on a pair of sunglasses. The little guy instantly transformed into a handsome and adorable model from a children's fashion magazine. The temperature today was a little high, so she didn't forget to put a hat on him. She turned his shoulders and looked at him from head to toe. Yun Shirshir immediately pretended to be a fangirl and said, "Little brother Tianyu is so handsome." Yu was amused by Yun Shirshir's exaggerated praise. Her face was a little shy, but more than that, she couldn't hide her joy. "Mommy, stop fooling around." The mother and son stood in front of the mirror to compare their looks, and they were overjoyed. Everything was ready, let's go. The mother and son got into a taxi and headed to their destination. Along the way, the sun was shining brightly outside the window. Yun Tianyu leaned against Yun Shirshir with a look of contentment. His head rested on her arm as he looked at the greenery flashing by outside the window. The scattered and mottled sunlight of early summer seemed to be cut into pieces. It filled his eyes with distinct black and white colors like beautiful stars. "Mommy." Yu raised his head with a rare innocence in his eyes. "How good would it be if I never grew up?" Yun Shirshir asked curiously. "Why do you say that?" "That way, I can always stick to Mommy." As Yu spoke, he slowly added, "I'll never grow up, and you'll never grow old. We'll always be like this. How good would that be?" His tone was very serious when he said this. Yun Shirshir was a little amused by his serious expression, but she saw him frown suddenly. "That won't do though." Chapter 4:15. Yu can only protect you and not let anyone bully you when you grow up. Yu hugged Yun Shirshir's arm and sweetly said, "No matter what, Yu will protect Mommy until we're old. No matter who bullies Mommy, Yu won't allow it. Mommy, if anyone bullies you in the future, you must tell Yu. Yu will bully them back for you." Yun Shirshir happily smiled and nodded, but she did not take his words to heart. She took it as a child's babble. Thus, by the time Yun Shirshir and the little lad reached Fairy Tale Valley, it was already noon. There were fewer people queuing at the entrance than in the morning, but it was still a long line. The enthusiasm for the amusement park did not diminish. Many tourists had traveled thousands of miles from other provinces and even countries. They bought tickets and entered the venue one after another. Although the long line was not as exaggerated as in the morning, the crowd almost drowned the entire square. Still, through the entrance, one could vaguely see the sea of people in the amusement park. It was evident that Fairy Tale Valley was a popular theme park. Yun Tianyu had specially chosen Fairy Tale Valley for this trip. Firstly, it was rare for him to go on a trip with his mommy. He wanted to choose a place with a good reputation so that his mommy could take advantage of this rare free time to relax. Secondly, he was here as a shareholder of Laji Holdings to inspect the park. He stood at the entrance of Fairy Tale Valley and scanned the decorations at the entrance. Mentally summarizing the flaws in them, He let Yun Shirshir lead him through the VIP passage into the park. Fairy Tale Valley had been around for 2 years, but a year ago, Fairy Tale Valley's reputation paled in comparison to other theme parks. Yun Tianyu, however, believed that the business opportunities of theme parks were limitless. If they were properly developed, the profits it could bring to the company would be immeasurable. Thus, as a shareholder, he secretly observed the situation under the accompaniment of Li Hanlin. From the design of the game and the introduction of the project machine to the cooperation with NE Corporation, the second phase of the project was completed a few months later. Fairy Tale Valley seemed to have welcomed its rebirth and its reputation soared. Many of the projects were personally designed by him. Therefore, when he entered the park, he did not need the park guide. He closed his eyes, and a clear drawing appeared in his mind. The division of each theme area could be seen at a glance. "Mommy, let's go to Fantasy Manor to play," he suggested. "All right." Yun Shirshir smiled and held his hand, walking towards Fantasy Manor with little Munchkin. However, the two people who were in high spirits did not notice the lonely and dejected figure sitting on the bench at the side. Xiao Yichen vaguely saw 2 familiar figures from the corner of his eye. When he looked up, Yun Shirshir and little Munchkin's figures were quickly buried in the endless stream of people. A trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. He stood up and searched through the crowd. However, all he saw were unfamiliar faces. "Little brother?" Xiao Yichen frowned slightly. He had a very strong telepathic connection. It was as if the child that appeared in his dream was now in the same world as him. Fantasy Manor was a theme park designed for children below the age of 8. Most of the attractions here were suitable for parents and children to play. Chapter 4:16. For example, the merry-go-round, bumper cars and rocket towers. Yu could not forget about those high-altitude thrills and wanted to try the trapeze, but his body was not suitable for such thrills. He had a congenital heart deficiency, so he was not suitable for high-altitude thrills. Although he felt that it was a pity, he gave up on it for the sake of his health. There were many interesting activities in Fantasy Manor. After playing a few of them, the mother-son pair did not feel tired at all. It was rare for Yun Tianyu to let go of the messy thoughts in his heart and devote himself to the blissful holiday. Yun Shirshir took this opportunity to take a few photos of him. The little lad was quite photogenic and had a good sense of the camera. Even if he just stood there and did nothing but smile, his fair skin and handsome face made him look like a handsome model. He was so adorable. After touring around Fantasy Manor, the mother and son duo didn't seem to be tired at all. They rested for a while on Sweetheart Street and planned to set off for the next scenic spot. Yun Shirshir was afraid that the weather would be too hot, so she bought a dessert for the little guy at the dessert station. At this time, the advantage of the VIP ticket was apparent. As long as one had a VIP ticket, all expenses in the manor were free. Yun Shirshir was secretly surprised. She did not know the value of these 2 VIP tickets, so she secretly praised Li Hanlin for his thoughtfulness. What she did not know, though, was that, as the biggest shareholder of Laji Holdings, these 2 VIP tickets were just a matter of a phone call to Yun Tianyu. Yu liked the mango and strawberry flavors, so Yun Shirshir specially bought him a mango and strawberry 2-toned ice cream for him to hold in his hands. Yu licked his lips in satisfaction. He scooped up the first mouthful of ice cream and sent it to Yun Shirshir's mouth. "Ah, Mommy, you're hot too." "Thank you, baby." Yun Shirshir took a bite. The ice cream was very soft and fragrant. It melted in her mouth. She raised her eyebrows in surprise and gave 2 thumbs up. "It's delicious. Yu, try it too." Yu smiled with her watery eyes and took a bite as well. The soft ice cream immediately melted in her mouth, accompanied by a rich milky aroma and a sweet fruity taste. It was sweet but not greasy. With just one taste, he could tell that this ice cream was authentic. It was made with real fruits, and there was no skimping on the ingredients. He was very satisfied with this. "Shirshir?" Not far away, a faint call could be heard. Due to the hubbub of the crowd, Yun Shirshir did not hear it clearly at first. She was so focused on the little lad, who was enjoying his ice cream while walking beside her, that she did not hear anyone calling her from behind. Until a woman holding a child walked up to her and patted her on the shoulder. "Are you Shirshir? Yun Shirshir?" Yun Shirshir was startled. Turning around, she saw a mature and charming young woman with thick makeup on her face. Her facial features were not outstanding, but they were still considered good-looking. "Shirshir." It's really you. I thought I mistook you for someone else. The woman said agitatedly. Do you still recognize me? Chapter 4:17. Jiang Li? Yun Shishir blurted out the name in a daze. Aya, you still remember me. Haha. It's been a long time since we last met. I didn't expect to see you here. Jiang Li smiled politely and held her hand tightly, looking very affectionate. Yun Shishir's lips tugged into a smile as well. She laughed along with her friend, but she felt extremely awkward inside. Speaking of which, this Jiang Li was her university classmate and also one of her deskmates. Under normal circumstances, when an old classmate met, they would be very excited, and they would even hug each other and cry. After all, they were classmates for 4 years in college, and they shared many beautiful memories of their youth. Alas, Yun Shishir was not in the least bit excited. It was because when she was in college, she was not popular. To be precise, since she was in college, she was not popular. Her classmates were just acquaintances. Except for Xiao Shui, she did not have any classmates that she could talk to. After so many years of college, she did not make any friends. One of the reasons was that she was a bit introverted at that time. She did not like to communicate with others, and did not know how to communicate with others. The communication barriers made it difficult for her to integrate into the group. However, in the eyes of others, she became a girl who was arrogant. So be it. She did not care about other people's opinions. After graduating from college, her youth came to an end. Her classmates had left their Weibo, WeChat, QQ, home addresses, and even contact information for each other. However, she had disappeared after taking her graduation certificate. She had not left any contact information. It was as if she had never existed in this class from beginning to end. Without her, the class reunion was never complete. No wonder Jiang Li was so excited about today's accidental meeting. After all, Yun Shishir was a legendary campus belle when she was in college. She was born beautiful, had a beautiful appearance, dropped out of college, and had an illegitimate child. The rumors about her were too mysterious. Therefore, she was a mysterious figure in the history of college. Yu held the ice cream and stood beside Yun Shishir, secretly sizing up the woman in front of her. From her words, he heard that she was his mother's university classmate, but she looked a little old. If he didn't know that she was the same age as his mother, he would have thought that this woman was in her 30s. It was no wonder that Yu felt that way. After Jiang Li graduated from university, she broke up with her boyfriend. Under the arrangement of her family, she hurriedly got married. Now, she was a mother of 2. She had recovered well after giving birth, but giving birth to a second child had a subtle effect on her body. Therefore, when she stood next to Yun Shishir, she looked a little old. Today, they were here to celebrate Children's Day with their eldest daughter. Jiang Li carried her daughter and said, "Qian, come, call me Auntie." "Auntie." The little girl called out timidly. She was about 3 or 4 years old and looked very obedient and cute. Yun Shishir smiled faintly. "Good girl, Qian." Jiang Li quickly stood beside her. At this moment, she was attracted by the little one who was sizing her up. She said with surprise in her eyes, "Wow, this child is so cute. Is he yours?" Chapter 4:18. As Yun Shishir spoke, she held Yu's little hand and instructed, Yu, aren't you going to greet your auntie?" "Hello, Auntie. My name is Yu. Auntie is so classy." Yu greeted her sweetly with a bright smile on his little face. He was not afraid of stage fright at all. "Oh, you're so cute. My heart is about to melt when you call me Auntie." Jiang Li was a woman who liked children very much. She could not resist Yu's sweet advances. She called him adorable and leaned over to ask for a kiss from Yu. Whack! Although Yu was unwilling to do so, he gave her face and leaned over to kiss her cheek. Jiang Li beamed with joy. "Yu is so cute. Shishir, you're so lucky." Yu smiled but secretly turned his back to them. He took out a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his lips vigorously with his back facing Yun Shishir and Jiang Li. D***. It's all foundation. The perfume is so strong. If it wasn't for Mommy's sake. When he secretly wiped his mouth clean, he saw that Jiang Li had already put Qian down. The little girl walked up to him and looked at him in a daze. She opened her arms and shyly asked for a kiss. Qian also wants. A kiss from little brother. Yun Tianyo's perfect smile froze a little. The corners of his lips twitched, and he discreetly hid behind Yun Shirshir. Qian leaned in front of him, hugged Yu Yu's shoulders, and pretended to kiss him. No. When Zhongli was not paying attention, Yu Yu gave her a disdainful slap on her face and coldly pushed her away. Qian was not sensible. She simply liked this handsome and cute little brother standing in front of her. When she was pushed away, she looked a little aggrieved, but she still opened her arms and pounced on Yu Yu tightly. Thus, the two little guys ran around Yun Shirshir, chasing each other around her. Zhongli smiled and said, "Your baby is so cute. How old is he?" 6 years old. Yun Shirshir smiled and did not mince her words. This time, it was Zhongli's turn to be stunned. 6 years old? 6 years old. Did that mean that Yun Shirshir gave birth to this child when she was 18? She became a mother's mother at 18 while she was still in college. Zhongli says das, right? There was a rumor about you being an unmarried mother. Clearly, she was not to talk to her zzzz. Zhongli nodded and cleverly did not mention it again. Since they had bumped into each other, Zhongli suggested that they go sightseeing together. Although Yun Shirshir was a little reluctant, she did help her during their college days, so she could not reject her. Will we disturb you? Zhongli asked worriedly. If you don't mind, let's go together. Look at my Qian. She likes your Yu Yu a lot. She saw Qian sticking closely to Yun Tianyo's back as if she had been possessed by a fangirl. Yun Tianyu smiled, but deep down, he despised this little lass. After packing up, the four of them set off for the next scenic spot. Not far from them, Xiao Chen carried a small school bag and followed closely behind. From time to time, he would raise his wrist. On his wrist was the smartwatch that Yun Shirshir had bought for her as a birthday present yesterday. Chapter 419. This watch had a GPS function. If two identical watches were less than 100 meters apart, they could locate each other through Bluetooth. Coincidentally, Yun Tianyu was wearing the same watch today. Also, he forgot to turn off the Bluetooth function when he was testing it. Xiao Chen followed the blinking on the watch's display screen. Mommy, look. There are so many people there. Yu Yu pointed to a spot not far away. It was crowded with tourists and looked very lively. Yun Shirshir looked in the direction he was pointing and saw a sea of people. There are so many people. It looks so lively. It must be an interesting game. Let's go and take a look. Yu Yu said coquettishly. Yun Shirshir gave her permission. Mommy, Yu Yu wants a hug. Yu Yu opened his arms in front of her and requested softly. The sun was a little hot now, and the little guy could not stand the heat. Besides, he had walked for a long time. Besides, he had to carry his small school bag by himself. It was no wonder he was tired now. Hence, Yun Shirshir squatted down, carried Yu Yu in her arms, and rushed toward the lively place. Zhongli was sitting on a bench and sending a WeChat message. She shared the photos she had taken during the game with her friends and quickly received many likes and comments. She did not have many hobbies and only liked to browse Weibo and her friends' circle. Soon, the university's alumni group was in an uproar. Someone saw her and said, "That woman looks so familiar." Someone quickly chimed in, "She looks like that Yun Shirshir from our class." Yun Shirshir? Is she the campus belle from our class? She took her graduation certificate and left without leaving any contact information. She just disappeared without a trace. We haven't heard from her for 6 years. For the past 6 years, Yun Shirshir's class would organize an annual class reunion. However, because no one had any news about Yun Shirshir, the reunion was never a success. The class leader felt very regretful about this. Zhongli, are you with her? Tell us, is that person Yun Shirshir? Zhongli hugged her phone and quickly replied, Yes. Today, we met by chance in Fairy Tale Valley. I was the first to recognize her. It's been a long time since we last met, but she still remembers my name. After all, we've been deskmates for more than a year, so he still has an impression of me. Also, I'm not that aloof anymore. We're playing together now. Are you serious? When we were still in school, she always gave me the cold shoulder when I talked to her. Zhongli quickly replied, No way. She's very gentle when she talks to me. She doesn't put on airs at all. You're her deskmate, so at least you have feelings for her. We're different. She's always cold to us. At this time the class leader suddenly appeared excitedly. Oh my God! Yun Shirshir. She disappeared for so long. I didn't expect you to catch her in the flesh. Zhongli smiled. Beside her, Qian Qian tugged at her sleeve and said coquettishly, Mommy, don't play with your phone all the time. Let's go play there. Let's go play there. Chapter 4:20. Yun Shirshir and Yun Tianyu plunged into the crowd. Who knew what kind of fun game they were playing? Zhang Li, on the other hand, was still playing with her phone at the same spot, ignoring her. How could she not be anxious? Zhang Li put down her phone for the time being and brought Qianqian to where Yun Shirshir was. This place was called Happiness Street, and there were many games. Yun Shirshir and Yun Tianyu were in front of a basketball machine. There was a long queue in front of the basketball machine. Most of these games were as simple as they could get. The reason why there were so many people queuing was not because the games were fun but because the prizes were generous. There were dolls, pillows, Luji's hottest toys, and even Luji's out-of-print robots. Yu Yu had his eyes on one of the prizes. It was a pair of cute dolls that looked very similar to the ones Yun Shirshir gave him when he was young. Yu Yu did not particularly like to play with toys, but perhaps he was still a child by nature and could not resist cute dolls. When he was young, Yun Shirshir gave him a bunch of cute teddy bears on Children's Day. They were not big and were just big enough for him to hug. Yu Yu had always cherished this pair of dolls. He always placed them by his bed and could not bear to let anyone touch them. Perhaps it was because Yun Shirshir gave them to him that he cherished them so much that he would personally make clothes for them. Although they looked childish now, they were still part of his childhood memories. The little guy liked to hug these two teddy bears to sleep every night. When he hugged the furry toys to sleep, his dreams would become very sweet. But later, the toy was taken away by Yun Na's cousin without his consent. When he returned home, he found that the teddy bear by his bed was gone, so he asked around anxiously. In the end, Yun Na said lightly, I'm sorry. When she saw these two teddy bears, she liked them very much, so I gave them to her. Yun Tianyu was heartbroken for a long time after hearing that. When Yun Shirshir found out that Yun Na had given the teddy bear away and noticed that Yu Yu was listless every night, she searched the streets for the teddy bear. However, she could no longer find the same toy on sale. Mommy, I want those two little bears. This prize could only be won if one scored 500 points. Each goal was worth 15 points, which meant that one had to score more than 30 goals within a minute to have a chance of winning. It was a little difficult. Yun Shirshir glanced at it and her heart skipped a beat. She immediately recognized that the pair of toys were very similar to the ones she had given to Yu Yu. The little guy actually still remembered that pair of teddy bears? She originally thought that most children were forgetful, but she didn't expect him to still remember. Yun Tianyu exchanged his VIP ticket for a chance. Since it was a VIP ticket, he naturally had priority. Thus, he stood in front of the children's basketball machine, picked up the ball that had rolled down, and threw it with much effort. Clang! The basketball hit the basket and didn't go in. Yun Tianyu broke out in a cold sweat. Clearly, he was not convinced. He picked up another basketball and threw it with all his might. This time the angle was right, and the strength was just right. He scored a goal. Yun Shirshir encouraged him. That's great! Yu Yu, do your best. Chapter 4:21. However, a minute passed in the blink of an eye. Even though he was panting from exhaustion, he only managed to score 300 points, which was barely half of the total. Yu Yu pouted, clearly unhappy. His stamina could not keep up. After such a short while, his breathing had quickened, and his face was flushed red. It was obvious that he was extremely tired. Little brother, here's a tissue for you. Qianqian, who was standing at the side, shyly passed a tissue to him. Yu Yu glanced at her and his lips twitched. He took the tissue from her and forced a smile. Thank you. It was fine if he did not smile, but when he did, it was as if the whole world had lost its color. His smile was as beautiful as a flower, and it made Qianqian dizzy and disoriented. In an instant, her face turned as red as a ripe persimmon. No, 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 no. You're welcome. Qianqian's heart raced as she clutched her chest. Apparently, she was instantly smitten by his smile. She immediately turned into a fangirl of her little idol. Zhang Li, who was standing at the side, took a picture of this loving moment and posted it on her WeChat moments with the caption, My daughter and her little idol look so compatible. Hee hee. The class group chat was already in an uproar. Zhongli clicked on it and saw an explosion of messages. Zhongli, ask around if Yun Shirshir is free to attend the class reunion next month. Zhongli. Where is she? Hey. Zhongli, you must invite Yun Shirshir to our class reunion next month. She replied, she may not be free. I don't care. I'll leave such a difficult task to you. Zhongli raised her head awkwardly, only to see Yun Shirshir standing in front of the adult basketball machine. She had exchanged her VIP ticket for a chance to play the game. The countdown started. She took a deep look at the prizes on the display table. Her eyes were burning with eagerness to give it a try. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. She made 3 consecutive shots and hit the target. The surrounding crowd burst into cheers of surprise and shock. At first, they were attracted by Yun Shirshir's beauty. She was young, elegant and refined. Moreover, she was a young mother with the temperament of a star. Even though she was wearing a simple mother and son outfit, her temperament was outstanding and eye-catching. However, she did not expect that when it came to shooting, she would not lose to men. Looking at her skinny figure, thin arms and slender waist, she looked weak. After all, shooting was a physical exercise. Who would have thought that she would be able to hit every shot? However, what they didn't know was that Yun Shirshir was a member of the girls' basketball team when she was in junior high school. Therefore, games like shooting baskets weren't too difficult for her. But even if his shooting skills were good, after a minute of continuous shooting, his arms gradually became sore, as if they were filled with lead. At the end of the game, he had a total of 495 points, 5 points short. Yun Shirshir's expression was extremely ugly. While feeling sorry for her, Yun Tianyu frowned in heartache and hurriedly passed her a bottle of mineral water. Mommy, drink some water and rest for a while. Yes. I'll play again later. Yun Shirshir was unwilling to admit defeat. She took a big gulp of the mineral water and planned to play again later. Forget it, Mommy. I don't want that toy anymore. Chapter 422. Forget it, Mommy. I don't want that toy anymore. Yu Yu's heart ached when he saw that she was sweating profusely. He didn't want that toy anymore. Yu Yu couldn't bear to watch his mommy fight so hard for him. He walked up to her and massaged her shoulders and arms, hoping that this would help her get rid of the soreness as soon as possible. If Yu Yu likes it, then Mommy will definitely win it back for you. Yun Shirshir made a solemn vow. Her gaze was resolute as she gulped down another mouthful of water and exchanged her VIP ticket for another chance to play the game. Yu Yu stood at the side, his face red and his lips pursed tightly. His heart ached for her, but he also felt warm. Yun Shirshir was never one to admit defeat. In her eyes, there were only things that could be done and things that couldn't be done. There were no possibilities or impossibilities. Just like in her studies, she might not be a genius, but she was hardworking and hardworking. She had willpower that ordinary people didn't have. In addition, she was a little stubborn. The staff at the side was a little stunned. They had seen many tourists who came to play games for prizes, but they had never seen such a persistent person. For the sake of a prize, he repeatedly played a boring game. He had a determination that was unlike ordinary people. They were a little surprised. These prizes weren't particularly expensive, except for a few special prizes that weren't available on the market. Compared to the VIP ticket that cost a few thousand yuan, the value of the toy itself wasn't that high. She had spent a few thousand yuan on a VIP ticket, but in the end, she was competing with a cheap product in a boring game. It was really puzzling. However, Yun Shirshir didn't care about what others thought. She only knew that Yu Yu liked that toy and wanted it. That was enough. If she couldn't pass the first round, she would play another round. It wasn't until the third round that Yun Shirshir barely passed the 500-point mark and got her wish to win the prize to Yu Yu. Baby, look, Mommy won. Yun Shirshir squatted in front of him and gently scratched his nose. Yu Yu was extremely touched. He gently stroked Little Bear and looked at Yun Shirshir, who was sweating profusely but smiling brightly. For a moment, he felt a lump in his throat. Mommy, Yu Yu loves you. As a reward, Yu Yu stepped forward and gave him a kiss. This was the sweetest reward. Seeing this, Qianqian, who was standing at the side, was green with envy. She softly asked, Little brother, can I touch your teddy bear? Here. Yu Yu was quite generous, and Qian was not annoying other than being very clingy. Hence, he let her play with the teddy bear for a while. Qian clearly loved it so much that she could not bear to part with it. The teddy bear was very cute, and children of her age could not resist such a cute toy at all. After playing with it for a while, she clamored for it too. Hence, Zhongli also went to play the game, but she didn't even get 100 points. This was a little awkward. Hence, Zhongli walked to Qian and asked her to return the toy to Yu Yu. She tried to persuade her, but Qian refused to let go. Her eyes were misty with tears, and her mouth was pouting. She looked sad and aggrieved, as if she was going to burst into tears the next second. Seeing that she had no intention of letting go, Zhongli couldn't help but feel awkward. After all, the teddy bear belonged to someone else. She couldn't just take it away, right? Chapter 423. However, the child was too young to understand such things. Before Zhongli could speak again, her tears fell and rolled down her cheeks. Sob, sob, sob. Qian likes this teddy bear too. Sob, sob, sob. Don't take Qian's teddy bear away. As soon as she finished speaking, Zhongli laughed awkwardly and scolded. Qian, stop fooling around. Quickly return the little bear to Big Brother. No. Qian likes this teddy bear so much. Little bear likes Qian too. Zhongli's smile froze. She looked up and looked at Yun Shishir in embarrassment. She had no choice, so there was a pleading look in her eyes. Qian had been pampered since she was young, so it was inevitable that she would be willful at times. She was a girl after all. She was the apple of everyone's eye and was spoiled. Zhongli knew that if she were to forcefully snatch the bear from her arms, she would definitely cry until the heavens and earth turned dark. Her crying skills were not to be trifled with. When she opened her mouth and wailed, the ground would shake. She could not afford to embarrass herself. There were so many people here. If Qian wanted to act shamelessly and lay on the ground, it would really put her in a difficult position. Therefore, Zhongli thought that even if it was bought, she hoped that Yun Shishir would give the teddy bear to her Qian. Yun Shishir was not stupid. How could she not see Zhongli's intention? She felt a little awkward. Perhaps, if it were other parents, they would make the decision on their own and agree readily to give the teddy bear to their child. At most, they would let their child suffer a little, but they would not embarrass themselves in front of outsiders. If Qian insisted on keeping the teddy bear and Yun Shishir did not agree, it would only make things difficult for both of them. People might even privately say that she was petty. An adult would stoop to the level of a child. After all, she could not be so petty with a child, could she? However, Yun Shishir did not think so. She believed that although toys were worthless in the eyes of adults, toys were souvenirs to children. As parents, they should respect their children, even if it was a small toy. Moreover, she had put in a lot of effort to get this toy. So, in Yu Yu's eyes, it must be very precious. If he gave it to other children, it would undoubtedly hurt Yu Yu. The child would think that he was being disrespected. His precious toy had been given away so casually. Hence, Yun Shishir walked in front of Qian and squatted down. First, she comforted the child. Then she said gently, Qian, Auntie knows that you like this teddy bear very much. But do you know who the owner of this teddy bear is? Yes, Auntie. No, it's Yu Yu Gidge. Yun Shishir pulled Yu Yu to her side and said to Qian, this toy belongs to Yu Yu. Auntie really wants to give it to Qian because Qian is so cute. But this toy is Yu Yu's favorite playmate. Qian, do you have a favorite toy? Yes, there are many at home. Qian held back her tears and replied with a sob. Then, if your mommy gives your toy to other children without your permission, will Qian be angry? Of course I will be angry. Very, very angry. Qian said angrily. Chapter 424. So, Qian, are you willing to return this plush toy to brother? Yun Shishir asked gently. When she saw Qian's expression waver, she lowered her head reluctantly and added, Auntie will win another pair of plush teddy bears for you later, okay? Yu Yu's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. His face turned pale instantly. The little munchkin's heart ached when he thought about how his mommy would have to play games to appease this brat. Hence, when Qian reluctantly returned the plush toy to Yu Yu gritted his teeth and pretended to be generous as he pushed the toy back to her. I don't want it anymore. I'll give this plush toy to you. Qian's eyes widened in surprise. Zhongli was also surprised by Yu Yu's maturity and generosity. She immediately urged her. Qianqian, hurry up and thank brother. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Qianqian loves Yu Yu the most. Yu Yu turned his face away proudly. But he did not like her. Yun Shirshir stroked Yu Yu's head gently. She felt sorry for his generosity and maturity. Yu Yu is so warm. You know how to give in to your sister. You can't stoop to the level of a child. Yu Yu shrugged helplessly when Zhongli could not hear them. Yun Shirshir did not know whether to laugh or cry. Did he forget that he was still a child when he said that? Yun Shirshir was surprised when she saw that he was so generous to give the toy to Qianqian. She thought about winning another prize for Yu Yu. Hence, when Yun Shirshir saw the 1.5-meter-long plush toy on the stage, she stopped in her tracks. Yu Yu, do you like it? I like it, but... All right. Wait for mommy. With that, Yun Shirshir walked forward. The condition to win this prize was to use the toy gun to burst 20 balloons within 60 seconds. 20. Yun Shirshir's eyes lit up. Killing 20 players within 60 minutes wasn't a very harsh condition. During her military training in university, shooting was part of her discipline. Therefore, she was quite confident in winning this prize. However, this idea was completely dispelled when she picked up the imitation toy gun. It was extraordinarily heavy. It was about the same weight as the gun she used during military training. Moreover, it didn't feel good to the touch. Although it was heavy, it looked very inferior. After weighing it in her hand, she finally managed to get used to it. The staff member walked over and was about to ask when Yun Shirshir flashed her VIP ticket. The staff member understood what she meant and announced a few important points and some rules of the game. As soon as the rules of the game were explained, Yun Shirshir lost her confidence. It turned out that this game was not only about strength, but also a certain amount of luck. Just popping the balloons wasn't enough. Popping a balloon would drop a point coin. If he wanted to win the giant panda, he had to pop 20 balloons within 60 seconds and reach 200 points. It was a little difficult. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. However, it didn't matter how difficult it was. Since he was already here, he might as well play to his heart's content. Hence, the game began. The bullet accurately hit the balloon. But it didn't burst. However, generally speaking, the smaller the balloon, the more elastic it was. The bullet shot from the toy gun didn't have a strong impact. If the angle wasn't accurate enough, it would be difficult to burst the balloon. The balloon was elastic enough to bounce off the bullet. He fired 5 rounds in a row, but all of them missed. Chapter 425. Yun Shirshir was a little depressed. Time flew by. Of course, when the time was up, Yun Shirshir put down the toy gun dejectedly. In 60 seconds, she had only popped 8 balloons. Her luck was not bad though. The coins that dropped were relatively large, but the number was too small, so the total score was only 150 points. Yun Tianyu went forward to hug the toy gun. His body almost swayed under the weight of the heavy gun, so he quickly put it back to its original position. It was so heavy. Yun Shirshir told him helplessly, "This game is too difficult." "Forget it, mommy." Yu Yu smiled faintly without much regret. "Let's go somewhere else to play." Yun Shirshir nodded, carried him, and left with Zhongli and the rest. Just as they left, a smart little head popped out from behind a nearby lamppost. Xiao Yichen walked out with his school bag. He watched Yun Shirshir and the rest leave slowly, but he was not in a hurry to chase after them. He raised his wrist, turned on the smart GPS, and set Yun Tianyu as his target. Thus, he walked to the shooting game table, pursed his lips, and slapped the VIP ticket in front of the staff. Earlier, he was hiding behind the lamppost and secretly observing Yun Shirshir and Yun Tianyu's every move. Finally, he found the same smartwatch on the latter's wrist. Only then did he realize that the target he had been tracking was actually him. The child he met at the gala last time? Was it his younger brother? It must be his younger brother. There was no other person in the world who looked so similar to him. This face had appeared in his dreams countless times, and it was extremely familiar. He did not know what telepathy was, nor did he know what relationship this child had with him. However, he subconsciously felt that this child was his younger brother. He really had a younger brother. This was not a dream. Although he was surprised, he was not in a hurry to expose himself. Instead, He secretly followed them. He saw Yun Shirsher repeatedly challenging a boring shooting game 4 or 5 times just to win a plushie for Yun Tianyu. When he saw the other children fighting for the toys with Yun Tianyu, Yun Shirsher did not side with the other children. Instead, she protected her child's feelings. He saw Yun Shirsher's pitiful and touched expression when Yun Tianyu gave up the toy. He even saw her playing a boring shooting game in order to win another prize for Yun Tianyu. Everything had been witnessed by his eyes. It wasn't like there wasn't any envy. This was especially so when Mu Yaja cruelly left him alone at the amusement park. His loneliness and disappointment only intensified when he saw the heartwarming interaction between the mother and son. While he was sad, he was also looking forward to it. He longed for a mommy like Yun Shirsher who would protect him, love him, and take care of him. He was also envious of Yun Shirsher. No matter when, where, no matter what he did, his mommy would always stand by his side and not side with the other child. When he saw that Yun Shirsher's game did not meet the standards, he vaguely made up his mind. "Little brother, are you the one playing?" The staff walked over and curiously sized him up. Seeing that he was alone, she worriedly looked around and searched for his parents. Chapter 426. I'm the one playing. Give me the gun, Xiao Yichen said coldly and made his request concisely. The staff member couldn't help but make things difficult for him. But this gun is very heavy. I know. Xiao Yichen looked a little impatient. I can carry it. The staff member obviously didn't believe him. Oh please, how old was this child? He was only about 6 years old, and his height was barely above the shooting range. However, this gun weighed at least 5 kilograms. It was a replica of a toy gun, so it was extraordinarily heavy. Xiao Yichen saw how hesitant the staff member was and became a little impatient. Please give me the gun. I'll let you try it. The staff member still felt that this child was obviously fooling around and secretly blamed the child's parents. The amusement park was so big. How could they allow this child to run around freely? What if he lost it? However, the staff member thought that Xiao Yichen was quite cute because of his handsome and tender face. Hence, she walked over to him with the gun and held it up for him to test its weight. Before she could say anything, Xiao Yichen nimbly took the gun from her and easily hugged it in his arms. His small hand gently caressed the body of the gun and calmly said, "Let's start the countdown." This time, it was the staff member's turn to lose her composure. Her face was full of shock, especially when she saw how easily Xiao Yichen played with the heavy replica gun in his hands. Although this gun was a toy gun, no one would be at ease if it was in the hands of a 6-year-old child. If anything happened, they would have to bear the responsibility. Naturally, they couldn't bear the responsibility. Moreover, when this child took out the VIP ticket, they knew that this child was from a wealthy family. What a joke. A ticket that cost a few thousand yuan couldn't have been bought by an ordinary person. The more a child came from such a background, the more they had to protect him. Otherwise, if his parents came looking for him, how could they bear the responsibility? Where are your parents? Xiao Yichen couldn't take it anymore. Start the countdown. The staff member's expression froze, and he pressed the timer. Little Yichen adjusted himself to the best position and pulled the trigger. The bullet was fired at once, but its firing speed was very slow. When the bullet hit the balloon, it was soft and powerless and quickly ricocheted off. Xiao Yichen frowned unhappily. Clearly, he felt that there was a limit to the toy gun's capabilities if he wanted to use it to his full potential. He tried a few more rounds of bullets and quickly looked at it. This gun looked like a 1-1 replica, but after some special debugging, he was sure that the trajectory had been changed, so he quickly took the gun down. Sure enough, it was a problem with the trajectory. When it came to debugging firearms, it was obvious that this was his specialty. In just a few moments, this thorny problem was quickly solved. By the time he finished assembling the gun, half of the time had already passed. Although he didn't hit the target, his professional shooting posture and domineering aura still shocked the few staff members on the side. Not bad. From the looks of it, this lad had practiced martial arts before. Did his family train him to shoot at such a young age? If he didn't have professional training, it was impossible for him to have such speed and such a domineering aura. Chapter 427. When they saw how the little guy skillfully dismantled the gun, changed the trajectory of the bullet, and finally reassembled it, the shock in their hearts could no longer be expressed with words. It was too shocking. This child, How could he be so good? Not only was he good with guns, but he even knew that the trajectory of the bullet had been changed. And he could even change it back? If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe. Xiao Yichen knew that time was running out, so he didn't waste any more time. He reloaded the gun and pulled the trigger. The bullet was no longer as slow as before. In a split second, it whistled through the air and pierced through the balloon. Pa! In a flash, the balloon burst without even seeing the bullet's trajectory. While everyone was still in shock, Xiao Yichen reloaded the gun, aimed, and pulled the trigger again and again. Unknowingly, his amazing results quickly attracted the attention of the surrounding audience. When they saw that there was a child playing a shooting game, and he was only 6 years old at that, they all came over in admiration. Pa! 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 As the balloons burst one by one, the scoreboard fell to the ground. In the last second on the timer, the 30th balloon burst and the scoreboard fell. Xiao Yichen put down the gun. The staff member at the side pressed the timer, but he was already stunned and speechless. The surrounding audience was even more amazed. Oh my God! This child was amazing. Help me count the points, thank you, Xiao Yichen said expressionlessly. The staff member was still a little dazed, but under the urging of the little kid's icy gaze, he quickly counted the scoreboard that had fallen to the ground. His luck wasn't good, so he didn't have many points. However, he won by having so many scoreboards. In total, he had more than 300 points. Xiao Yichen raised his eyebrows, but he didn't show the excitement that everyone expected a child to have. It was as if he had already expected this result and was determined to get it. Little kid, congratulations. You have 320 points. What kind of prize do you want? Xiao Yichen looked at the huge panda plushie on the display stage. His eyes moved, and there was a hint of gentleness in them as he pointed at it. Is that the panda over there? Yes, that's it. Xiao Yichen waited for her to pass the doll to him. The staff member nodded and walked to the display stand to pick up the panda plushie. Aya, little Zhang. Wait. How many more pandas are there? A staff member from another shooting range asked nervously as he rushed over. Just one. What's wrong? Is there no more stock? Yeah, there's only one left. What's wrong? Aya, what should we do? There was a tourist over there. The mission was completed. What a coincidence. He also wants this panda. Do you have any tourists on your side? Yes. Little Zhang nodded. He recalled Xiao Yichen's swift and fierce movements when he was shooting. He still hadn't recovered from the shock. Then what should we do? That tourist over there also took a fancy to it. But the tourists on my side also took a fancy to it. Which one? Let me see. That child over there. Do you see him? Chapter 428. The staff member looked in the direction that little Zhang was pointing at and saw a 6-year-old kid. His face darkened as he said suspiciously, Are you kidding me? That's a 6-year-old kid. Kids under the age of 10 can't play this game. The gun is so heavy and the rules are so strict. As he spoke, he couldn't help but question, Did you go easy on the kid because he looks cute? Don't spout nonsense. How is that possible? Although the kid is young, he's quite capable. This kid didn't cheat. He hit 30 balloons in 60 seconds and accumulated 320 points. Impossible. The staff member's face turned pale. He felt that it was ridiculous. My tourist came from a military school and is very good at shooting. Even so, he only hit 20 balloons and got 300 points. I'm not lying to you. The staff member didn't believe him. He shook his head and said, Aya, this tourist isn't easy to deal with. He specially brought his girlfriend here and his girlfriend took a fancy to this panda. He obviously wants to use this panda to coax his girlfriend. He only passed after playing a few times. You have a kid here, so he's definitely easier to deal with than my tourist. Why don't you coax him and let him choose a new prize? Little Yichen stood at the same spot for a long time until, from the corner of his eye, he saw a staff member carrying the panda toward another man. His heart tightened as he hurried over and called out to the man. This panda is my prize. Where are you taking it? The staff member smiled awkwardly. Kid, this big brother has also finished the game. Do you want to change the prize? No. Xiao Yichen said firmly. This toy is a gift for my brother. I won, so it should be mine. Isn't that what the rules say? The staff member was speechless. Kid, go away. This is not your place to speak. A young man walked over from the side. His appearance wasn't outstanding, and there was a ruffian look in his eyes. He walked in front of the staff member and looked at him with disdain before coldly chasing him away. Did I speak to you? Xiao Yichen frowned and asked coldly. Brat, are you so arrogant? The young man was clearly agitated by Xiao Yichen's indifference. I won this prize from a game. What does it have to do with you? Xiao Yichen said calmly. How can it not matter? I won the game too. Ha. Stop bragging. Brat. The young man laughed a few times as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Finally he said coldly. You've just been weaned. How can you play with a gun? What a joke. A short-sighted person is like a frog at the bottom of a well. Xiao Yichen mocked him with an idiom he had just learned. The man's lips twitched when he heard that. If it weren't for the fact that they were in front of so many people, he probably wouldn't have been able to resist the urge to give him a good knock on the head. The staff at the side said weakly, This child has indeed cleared the game. Truly. The man glared fiercely. Do you think I'm easy to fool? Who is this child to you? Are you trying to cover for him? I'm a tourist here who cleared the game. I should get the prize that belongs to me, shouldn't I? Chapter 429. I'm not protecting this child. Without waiting for her to explain further, Xiao Yichen felt that this was a waste of time. He didn't want to be calculative about who had popped more balloons and accumulated more points. Instead, he said coldly, Stop talking nonsense. Let's compete. If you win, it's yours. If you lose, I'll take it. His words were concise and to the point. He immediately issued a challenge, intending to settle this matter with a duel as soon as possible. The young man looked at his cold eyes and the fierce aura that he exuded. For some reason, he felt a little weak. Xiao Yichen felt that the young man was a little wishy-washy. He was only good at talking, but when it came to competing, he obviously didn't have the confidence. Actually, the young man wasn't feeling guilty. He just didn't want to compete with this child. Regardless of whether he won or lost, he would lose face. Even if he won, it wouldn't look good. However, his girlfriend was angry and said that if he didn't win the panda, she wouldn't forgive him. She was sitting on the bench, huffing and puffing. In order to make her happy, he went through a lot of trouble to complete the game. However, no matter what he thought, Xiao Yichen looked down on him. What? Are you scared? Then I'll take the prize. Wait. Who said I'm scared? I just feel that it's laughable to compete with a child who just stopped drinking milk. Also, have you stopped drinking milk? Kid. The young man said stubbornly. If you're afraid of losing, then don't compete with me. Otherwise, if you lose to me, wouldn't that be even more embarrassing? Xiao Yichen sneered and mocked him. The crowd burst into laughter. The young man spat and clenched his fists tightly. He said indignantly, Let's compete then. I happen to have time today, so I'll play with you. Xiao Yichen nodded. Good for you. His words made the young man's face turn ashen. His expression was extremely ugly. He walked up to the staff member and flashed his VIP ticket. He then said, I'll compete with that person again. Whoever wins will take this panda away. The staff was in a bit of a dilemma. After all, this game station was not a competition stage. It was unprecedented for two people to compete on the same stage. There were still many tourists lining up. What if it caused other tourists to be dissatisfied? However, when they heard that the child was going to compete with a young man in a shooting game, the tourists who were originally queuing up formed a circle. Clearly, they wanted to watch the show. Humans always love to watch a good show. Moreover, this time, it was no other than a 6-year-old child competing with an adult. And such an adorable little one at that. This was truly astonishing. They were quite curious as to whether this child was capable or not. Was it the child's words that carried no harm, or was it a young talent? Therefore, everyone was curious and wanted to know who would win in the end. The man was in a difficult position. Now that the people around him were jeering with the attitude of watching a good show, he didn't have the chance to back out now. However, on second thought, how capable could a 6-year-old child be? He had served in the military before. No matter how amazing this 6-year-old child's shooting skills were, It would be difficult for him to compare. Moreover, he wasn't the one who wanted to compete. Chapter 4:30. With that thought in mind, he stopped worrying and stood in front of the shooting platform. He rubbed his palms together, eager to give it a try. Little Chen, on the other hand, had the foresight this time. Previously, he did not know that the gun's trajectory had been changed, so he wasted half of his time. This time, he wanted to adjust the gun's trajectory in advance before reassembling it. After all, he could not afford to make any mistakes when competing with other people. He was determined to win this panda. The man watched him dismantle and reassemble the gun from the side, secretly laughing in his heart. This kid is a prodigal. What does a 6-year-old kid know about guns? Can he know better than me? Dismantling and reassembling the gun, the kid might accidentally lose a part of the gun. When the game starts, the gun won't be able to shoot. Don't blame me for being heartless. Are you ready? The staff member held the timer and saw that both sides had already raised their guns and were eyeing the balloon board covetously, so he said, "Begin." As soon as he finished speaking, the man took the lead and fired the first round of bullets. He opened the door to victory and burst a balloon in an instant. His technique was quite professional. At least he did not look like a layman. When the crowd looked at the other side, they were all stunned. They saw Xiao Yichen aiming at the balloon board. Every bullet he fired hit the balloon accurately. Then, he swiftly loaded the gun and pulled the trigger again. His movements were as smooth as flowing water. The bullets shot out were like thunder, with an irresistible force. Bang! 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 The sound of balloons bursting could be heard continuously. This was undoubtedly a competition of equal strength. No, if the two sides were to be compared, those who were observant would realize that Xiao Yichen's hand speed was faster than the man's by a few seconds. Compared to the man's frantic movements, his face was calm and his posture was as steady as a mountain. Looking at the balloon board, his breathing was calm and his gaze was like a torch. The fierceness and murderous intent in his eyes was not something a child should have. His movements were unbelievably coordinated. The whole process was seamless, as if he and the gun had become one. Their coordination was perfect. The speed of the cutting was too much for the eyes to take in. This was clearly a one-sided showdown. Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. In comparison, this child was the real expert. While they were curious about how a 6-year-old child could be so accurate with a gun, time passed quickly. Soon, a countdown was announced. 8, 7, 3, 2. At the last second, Xiao Yichen raised his gun and narrowed his eyes coldly. The corners of his mouth suddenly curved into a cold and evil smile. This smile was like a confident smile with victory in his grasp. He pulled the trigger. The bullet pierced the balloon and whizzed away. The last balloon on the balloon board, along with the accumulative points card inside, shattered and fell to the ground with a popping sound. Time's up. The staff called for a halt. However, at this moment, the surrounding crowd fell into a suffocating silence. No one cheered, and no one made a sound. Everyone held their breath and waited for the staff to announce the final result. Chapter 4:31. The man was obviously very confident in his results. He had counted the number of balloons he had shot. He had shot about 30 balloons, which was better than his previous results. This time, there should be no problems. While the staff was calculating the points, he looked at Xiao Yichen. He saw that the man had his hands behind his back, but his gaze was fixed on the giant panda on the display stand. His balloon board was empty, and there was not a single balloon hanging on it. What was going on? He had shot all the balloons? How was that possible? After the two staff finished calculating the final points, they walked into the crowd and began to announce the results. This gentleman's final result is that he has shot 35 balloons, and he has accumulated 400 points. When the man heard the results, he waved his fist in the air. He felt that he was going to win this duel. However, his smile froze on his face when he heard the next result. This kid's result is that he has shot a total of 108 balloons, and he has accumulated 1,025 points. The crowd erupted into thunderous cheers. Unbelievable! This was a miracle. At the same time, many people in the crowd were mocking him. Hee, a grown man can't even beat a kid, and he's still so full of himself. You didn't hear it just now. I was behind him in line. He kept bragging in the crowd, saying that he used to be a soldier and that he had touched more guns than breasts. He's an ignorant and incompetent ruffian. How can he be a soldier? Don't embarrass the soldiers. Even a kid can crush him, The man was at his limit. Suddenly, he pointed at the staff and said in exasperation, "Cheating! Cheating! 108 balloons, who would believe that? How could a kid do that?" As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd erupted in support of him, mocking him for being a sore loser. "We believe it. That's right. We saw it just now. This kid is better than you. Just admit defeat. You're a grown man, but your skills are inferior, and you can't afford to lose. This kind of gun is able to explode balloons because of experience and skill. 60 seconds. Only 60 seconds. The whole process of loading and firing takes 1 second. 60 seconds at most can explode 60 balloons, I believe." Xiao Yichen said coldly, "Don't compare me to a piece of trash like you who can only shoot 30 balloons, okay?" With a lukewarm insult, the other man's face immediately turned ashen, and he lost all face. "What did you say?" "I said you're a piece of trash." Little Yichen did not give him any face. "Don't you know? I changed the ballistics and mechanism. That was why the two guns were different. Little Yichen's modified gun could fire 5 rounds in a row, which saved a lot of time." The man was speechless. He was so angry that the muscles on his face were twitching. "Come, little kid." The staff smiled and passed the 1.5-meter-long panda to him. Xiao Yichen hugged it with both hands. The panda was indeed a real panda. It was 1.5 meter long, soft, and comfortable to hug. Xiao Yichen hugged it with both hands, almost covering his entire body. Only then was he satisfied and left with her in his arms. Chapter 432. Hugging the panda with both hands, he was troubled. He had won the prize to give it to the little guy, his younger brother. But how should he give it to him? Just as he was in a dilemma, he suddenly came back to his senses and felt that someone was following him. His senses were extremely sharp and his sixth sense of danger was quite strong. However, with the panda in his hands, his vision was blocked and he looked at the ground. Behind him, a long shadow was following him like a shadow. He was cautious. He turned a corner and placed the panda on the bench. When he turned around, he saw that the man from before had followed him. "You're haunting me. What do you want?" Xiao Yichen was very alert. He glanced at him and knew that this man did not come with good intentions. Hence, he stared at him vigilantly. The man's lips curled and he suddenly laughed sinisterly. "Little brat, you're very arrogant. Do you know that you've embarrassed me today?" This stinking brat came out of nowhere and made him lose all his face. He didn't expect that his girlfriend had also seen the duel just now. Her boyfriend had actually lost to a 6-year-old brat. Naturally, the outcome was to ruthlessly ridicule him. Hence, he was even more embarrassed. He was born into a proud family and entered the army at the age of 18. He was proud of his good family background and had never taken anyone seriously. Now that he had suffered such a huge loss at the hands of a 6-year-old brat, he naturally had a belly full of anger that he had nowhere to vent. For some reason he followed them here. "Damn it! Little brat, you embarrassed me so much. How are you going to compensate me? Go back and practice your marksmanship so that you won't lose to a 5-year-old brat again." Xiao Yichen said coldly and mercilessly. "You damn it! You're asking for a beating." As he said that, he stuck his hand into his pocket and kicked at him. In the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye. Xiao Yichen moved like lightning and dodged the attack easily. Before the man could retract his leg, he used his palm to strike the weakest part of the man's knee. No matter what kind of hellish training a child received, it was inevitable that there would be a huge difference in strength between an adult man who had undergone the same training. However, that did not mean that he was soft bun. He struck the weakest part of the man's knee with his palm. His strength was not as great as the man's, but he was familiar with the weakest acupoints in the human body. Accompanied by a twitching pain, the man groaned. His legs gave way and he knelt on one knee. Xiao Yichen followed his example. He stretched out his leg and kicked the man's crotch. You. The muscles on the man's face twitched violently. His eyes were bloodshot and gloomy. He glared at Xiao Yichen and threw a punch at him. If the kick just now was said to have held back some of his strength, then this punch was full of strength, mixed with the force of a thunderbolt. There was no doubt that if this punch landed on a child's body, even if the child's bones were not broken, they would definitely be dislocated and injured. Xiao Yichen sneered. He had expected that the man would make such a move when he was in pain. As he dodged the attack, he stretched out his palm and grabbed the man's wrist. With a twist, he dislocated the man's wrist joint. Chapter 433. At the same time, he imitated the man's actions and punched him in the face. The most vulnerable part of a person's facial features was the bridge of their nose. Xiao Yichen aimed his fist at the bridge of the nose and punched it. A cracking sound was heard, as though the bridge of the nose had been broken. Xiao Yichen was going to return an eye for an eye for an eye. The man couldn't react in time. He was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. In a fit of rage, he bared his fangs and brandished his claws as he pounced on Xiao Yichen. It was as though the person standing in front of him was no longer a 6-year-old child, but an opponent who was on par with him. Xiao Yichen remained calm as he watched the man pounce on him. He leaped back a few steps like a cat and dodged the man's attack. Following that, he delivered a roundhouse kick to the man's jaw. The man's body stiffened as he clutched his dislocated jaw and knelt on the ground. Xiao Yichen casually walked over and stomped on the back of the man's hand with his sneakers. He grabbed the man's hair, clenched his right hand into a fist, and punched the man's broken nose thrice. Ouch! The man howled in pain. The excruciating pain made him lose all strength to resist. Xiao Yichen let go of the man's hand, and the man's body went limp and fell to the ground. Get lost! Xiao Yichen felt that the man was blocking his way, so he kicked him to the side. He took out a wet wipe and carefully wiped off the blood on his hand. It was the man's nosebleed. Xiao Yichen frowned in disgust. He was a clean freak, so one wet wipe wasn't enough. He took out a few more and wiped his hand before throwing them on the man's face. He took out a lollipop, slowly tore off the wrapper, and put it in his mouth. Then, he picked up the panda and looked coldly at the man on the ground who refused to move. You can't even withstand a single blow. Then, he stepped on the man's back and walked away. Yun Shishir, Jiang Li, and the other three chatted casually as they walked. Compared to her previous coldness, after chatting for a while, Yun Shishir gradually became familiar with her, but even so, she still didn't talk much. She was a slow person to warm up to others. When she interacted with others, she always gave people a cold feeling at first, as if she was quite unapproachable. But when they were really close, as a friend, Yun Shishir was still relatively gentle. Jiang Li suddenly remembered something the class leader told her before, so she pretended to mention it casually. Shishir, did you know that our class has a reunion every year? But it's been 6 years, and you're the only one missing. Everyone feels very lonely. The class monitor has always had a wish, and that is to have our class reunion together. What do you think? Yun Shishir suddenly fell silent for a moment. Class reunion. What she meant was that she was inviting her to participate. However, she did not have much desire to do so. It was not because of anything else, but because she felt that everyone in the class was so unfamiliar to her after being classmates for 4 years. To her, a reunion would only be awkward. Chapter 434. Shishir, you don't have to think too much about it. I know what kind of grievances you've suffered in university, but who doesn't have such twists and turns in their youth? All these joys and sorrows are now in the past. Now, when classmates gather together, it's more about reminiscing about their youth. After all, it's hard to erase the feelings of being classmates for 4 years. Yes, I know. Yun Tianyu walked to the side and listened in silence. When he heard that his mommy seemed to have suffered a lot in university, his heart ached slightly. It should have something to do with him. He had more or less heard from Yun Na that his mommy had put in a lot of effort to take care of him in university. In school, rumors about his mommy's unmarried child had spread like wildfire. When the school heard about it, they almost expelled her from school. Thinking of this, he did not know why, but even though he knew that this matter had nothing to do with Jiang Li, he felt a little disgusted with her. Why did she talk about the past in such a nonchalant tone? Could it be that the so-called pain had become a memory and was no longer painful? Not to mention feeling empathy. How could one know how painful it was if they were not pricked by needles themselves? She even said that she treated his mommy as a friend, but he knew that she was up to no good. Jiang Li did not notice the silent and indifferent Yun Tianyu at the side. Naturally, she did not know what the little lad was secretly criticizing her in his heart. She was only trying her best to persuade Yun Shirshir. Shirshir, do me the honor of attending the class reunion next month. Just take it as giving me some face, that's fine. Everyone misses you. I wonder how you've been for the past 6 years. Are you doing well? As she spoke, she took out a text message to show her. Look, the class monitor specially instructed me to invite you. Such a difficult task has fallen on me. You won't watch me fail to complete my mission and be condemned by everyone, right? Yun Shirshir could not help but be amused by her. Why are you exaggerating? Exaggerating? This isn't an exaggeration at all. It's been 6 years. We haven't seen each other for 6 years. How many 6 years do you have in life? When you graduate, you disappear without a word with your diploma. It's rare for me to meet you today. It's fate. No matter what, you must come. Zhang Li's attitude was stubborn as she begged again and again. Yun Shirshir couldn't refuse, so she reluctantly agreed. Zhang Li was so excited that she jumped 3 feet high. She hugged Yun Shirshir and shouted a few times. Then, she immediately shared the news in the WeChat group. The group instantly exploded. Everyone was very excited. Yun Shirshir had once suffered a lot of rumors and slanders, but she was the most popular campus belle in the university. After disappearing for 6 years, all the members of the class had finally gathered. The most excited one was the class monitor. Zhang Li teased a few times, obviously in a good mood. Without realizing it, the 4 of them had reached the entrance of the haunted house. Yun Tianyo's interest was piqued and he wanted to go in and play. Mommy, do you dare to go in and play? Standing at the entrance of the haunted house, Yun Tianyu smirked as he hugged Yun Shirshir's arm. Yun Shirshir looked at him in surprise. You want to play? I want to play. I want to play. He said coquettishly. I want Mommy to play with me. Chapter 435. It's very dark inside though. Yun Shirshir was a little afraid of the dark. Yun Tianyu smiled. What are you afraid of, Mommy? You have me, don't you? This is an adult attraction. Are you really not afraid? In order to cater to the youths, Fairy Tale Valley also had attractions for them. Among them, the haunted house was the most popular, but because it was geared toward the youths, its terror index was quite high. Children above the age of 5 and below the age of 10 had to be accompanied by their parents to participate. Yun Tianyu was not afraid though. He was the one who came up with a few segments of this attraction. What was there to be afraid of? It was all fake. I'm not afraid. I'll protect Mommy. Okay. Yun Shirshir naturally let him be. She turned to ask Zhang Li, do you guys want to play? No, our Qianqian is afraid of the dark and ghosts. You guys should play. I'll wait for you outside. Zhang Li smiled helplessly. Okay. You guys can go to other attractions to play, too. It's fine. I'm tired too. I'll bring Qianqian to the rest area for a while. Zhang Li said as she carried Qianqian away. Qianqian was obviously unwilling to leave. She waved her hands at Yun Tianyu reluctantly. Only after Zhang Li threatened her a few times did the little lowly obediently stop moving. Finally, Yun Tianyu was satisfied. His motive for choosing the haunted house was to get rid of this annoying brat. He was just enjoying some alone time with his mommy when this brat appeared out of nowhere and kept sticking to him. Yun Tianyu was very depressed. The queue was very long. Even if it was the VIP passage, there were still quite a few people lining up. The haunted house was a reincarnation game. Only 15 visitors could enter at a time. After 10 minutes of free walking, the staff inside would lead them to the exit. While waiting, Yun Tianyu's peripheral vision caught the attention of a giant panda behind him. Among the crowd, a child was carrying a giant panda, which was particularly eye-catching. The panda was huge, about 1.5 meters long. The child's height was shorter than it, so he was blocked from sight by it. Hence, from afar, he saw the panda's adorable face facing him. Its black eyes were playful and adorable. Yun Tianyu exclaimed in surprise. Was this not the panda plushie that his mother wanted to win for him earlier? Who would have thought that it would fall into someone else's hands so soon after he left? Yun Tianyu stared at the panda for a while more before turning his head away. Xiao Yichen, who was hiding behind the giant panda, let out a long sigh of relief. His heart, which had been hanging high in the air, finally calmed down. It was quite nerve-wracking. Xiao Yichen was extremely conflicted. She had chased him all the way here, but she didn't know how to give this gift to him. Hence, when he saw him enter the haunted house, he joined the queue behind him. However, when he saw Yun Tianyu turn around to stare at the panda, his heart thundered. Just as she was struggling internally, Yun Tianyu turned back to look at the panda's adorable face. It was obvious that he was quite fond of it. Hence, he walked toward Xiao Yichen. Xiao Yichen thought he was going somewhere, so he looked back in the direction he came from, but he didn't see anything. When he turned around, he saw that Yun Tianyu had actually stopped in front of him. From his vantage point, he could see a pair of British-style sneakers. Chapter 436. Xiao Yichen was so stunned that he found it hard to breathe. This was the first time in their lives that the two little lads were so close to each other. They were only separated by a plushie. As the plushie was blocking Xiao Yichen's face, Yun Tianyu could not see his face. Judging from his height, he was probably older than him. "Did your daddy win this panda for you?" Xiao Yichen shyly buried his face in the plushie when he heard this. His muffled voice traveled through the plushie. "No, I won this." "Is it that balloon shooting game?" Yun Tianyu was a little surprised. "Yes." Yun Tianyu's face broke into a smile. "Wow, that's awesome." Inwardly, however, he thought, how is that possible? Even adults find it hard to clear that game. How can a child of his age complete it? On second thought, though, the advanced mathematics papers he usually did had stumped the top students in high school. It was not surprising. "What's your score?" Yun Tianyu was a little curious about this child's standard. Xiao Yichen answered, 109 balloons, which cost more than 1,000 points. Yun Tianyu was speechless. 109 balloons in a minute. What a joke. He doubted the authenticity of this score. If this child really won, then he could not help but wonder if the difficulty of this game was too low. Yun Tianyu asked again, "Do you like this toy?" As one of the shareholders of Fairy Tale Valley, it was necessary for him to be concerned about the visitor's experience. Xiao Yichen's voice was a little muffled. "I don't like it." "Eh? Then why did you?" "I won it for my younger brother." Xiao Yichen's usually cold and arrogant face blushed shyly. His voice was also timid, seemingly a little embarrassed. "Because my younger brother likes it, I won it and wanted to give it to him." For some reason, Xiao Yichen's somewhat wooden way of expressing himself made Yun Tianyu's heart skip a beat. His lips curled into an approving smile. "You're such a good brother. I hope you'll have fun here." With that, Yun Tianyu returned to his team. Xiao Yichen cautiously poked his head out from behind the giant panda. Looking at Yun Tianyu's back, he felt a little impulsive. He wanted to rush forward and give his younger brother, whom he had never met but could only appear in his dreams, a big hug. However, he did not dare to do so. What if his younger brother did not like him? What if his younger brother ignored him when he talked to him? Xiao Yichen's heart to struggle to decide? Yun Tianyu to play to Yun's to be to him. "Mommy, didn't you play that balloon shooting game last time? You wanted to win the panda plushie for me, but it was already won by someone else." Yun Tianyu raised his head and asked. Chapter 437. The panda in the crowd was particularly eye-catching. Its chubby face was adorably adorable as it stood among the crowd. At a closer look, it was as if the doll had come alive and was queuing up to enter the haunted house. Upon closer inspection, this panda was actually being carried by a child. It was just that this panda was too big. It was 1.5 meters tall and completely covered the child behind it. Yun Shishir commented, "I wonder who's so good to actually clear this game." "Yes," Yun Tianyu suddenly said happily. Mommy, it's our turn." The staff started to check the tickets, starting from Yun Shishir to Xiao Yichen. There were exactly 15 people in total. However, when it was Xiao Yichen's turn, the staff stopped him when she saw that he was carrying a panda and seemed to be alone. "Little friend, where are your parents? If you're a child, you have to be accompanied by your parents before you can play." Xiao Yichen's face peeked out from behind the doll and said innocently, "My mommy and brother have already gone in." Seeing that he and the child who had just entered the haunted house were twins, the staff did not think much of it and reminded him, "Okay, but you must hurry up and not fall behind." "Thank you, Auntie." "Auntie." The staff's eyes twitched. She was clearly still a high school student, all right? Xiao Yichen did not care about her ugly expression and hurried into the haunted house with the panda in his arms. The staff suddenly reacted and chased after him to ask, "Oh, right. Little friend, do you want me to keep the doll in your hands for you?" As soon as she finished speaking, she had already disappeared into the entrance. This haunted house was designed with the theme of Japanese horror as its theme. Most of the Japanese horror houses had a unique style and oriental colors. Unlike those that relied on special effects and gore to create a scary atmosphere, Japanese horror mostly made use of people's fear of the unknown to create hair-raising images and sound effects to destroy people's willpower. Pulling open the curtain at the entrance and walking in, one would feel as if they had stepped into a dark and unknown world. This haunted house was designed as an abandoned hospital building. Its appearance was dilapidated and desolate, making one's heart tremble. There was no fixed route inside. Visitors were allowed to walk freely inside. This kind of design allowed the visitors to truly feel the terror of being in close proximity, and the design inside the haunted house was very realistic as well. The constantly flickering dim yellow light, the rusty chains, the rather aged and cracked walls, and the white bed sheet stained with blood. No matter what detail it was enough to make one's heart palpitate. While he was queuing, he took a look at the theme of the haunted house. This abandoned hospital used to be a huge private hospital with an excellent medical team and top-notch medical equipment. But later on, the director colluded with some underground black market organizations to sell fresh human organs. They injected people who were supposed to be healthy with sleeping drugs and even dissected them for experiments. Later, when the truth came to light, the director was taken away for investigation, and the hospital closed down. Gradually, it was abandoned, but the rumors of a haunted house slowly spread. Chapter 438. Xiao Yichen pursed his lips tightly. When this batch of 15 visitors stepped into the haunted house, most of them had already dispersed. He tried his best to keep up with Yun Shishir and Yun Tianyu, who were walking in front, based on the sound alone. He was a little afraid of the dark, especially in such an environment. It was inevitable that he would feel a little flustered. Hence, the little guy could not help hugging the panda tighter, as if this could ward off some of his fear. Yun Shishir and Yun Tianyu walked in front. As the haunted house was very dim, and Yun Shishir was also a little afraid of the dark, she walked very slowly. Yun Tianyu walked beside her with a calm look on his face. It was not because of anything else but because this haunted house was in its operational stage. He was among the first batch of people to try it out. He was very clear about the mode, the traps, and even the staff who would suddenly appear and pretend to be ghosts to scare people. Hence, the route he took with Yun Shishir was relatively safer. There were fewer traps, but there were not many people pretending to be ghosts. Along the way, there were no staff members pretending to be ghosts to block their way. Gradually, Yun Shishir relaxed a little. Xiao Yichen followed closely behind them. He was so afraid that he did not look at the creepy props. He thought that this haunted house was just for scaring people, but he did not expect the props and scenery to be so realistic. Even though he knew that these were all fake, under such circumstances, it was still quite immersive. Xiao Yichen quickened his pace. When he was about a few meters away from Yun Shishir and Yu Yu, he could vaguely hear the two talking and laughing. "Mommy, are you scared?" "No, I'm not." "Don't I have Yu Yu to protect me?" Yun Shishir's tone was relaxed. She then lowered her head and asked him, "Yu Yu, are you scared?" "What's there to be scared of?" Yu Yu chuckled in his heart as he held onto Yun Shishir's hand and walked into a pharmacy. There were many glassware in the small room, and there were many organs soaked in formalin. The props were very lifelike, which was really creepy. Not only was Yun Tianyu unafraid, he even scrutinized each and every one of them. Most of the time, before entering a haunted house, the visitors would be eager to give it a try, wondering how scary it would be. However, once they entered the haunted house, they were all focused on running toward the exit. They had no time to look at the scary scenery inside the haunted house. As a result, many haunted houses had very crude sets. However, the haunted houses in Fairy Tale Valley had very detailed decorations, and they strived for realism. Due to the high terror factor, the haunted house was equipped with many first aid stations. Once you reached the first aid station, there would be workers to lead you out of the haunted house. Xiao Yichen watched them tour the pharmacy from afar. Suddenly, he heard a series of quick footsteps behind him. His senses were very sharp, whether it was his vision or his hearing. Coupled with his high vigilance, he couldn't help but stop in his tracks and frown. In the silence, the sound of footsteps was very clear. Xiao Yichen threw the panda on the ground and hid in a corner. He saw a man slowly walking to his previous position. His attire was dark, as if he was trying to hide it from others. He was wearing a cap, so it was impossible to see his face clearly. Xiao Yichen sized him up carefully and saw that his hand was still clasped around his waist. Chapter 439. His eyesight was very sharp in the dark, so he could tell at once that the bulging silhouette was a gun. From its silhouette, he could tell that it was a desert eagle. It was very powerful and had a strong penetrating power. A gun? Why would this person have a gun? How did he pass the security check with such a terrifying weapon of mass destruction? Before Xiao Yichen could be surprised, he saw the man kick the panda aside and walk forward. He slowly stood up and suddenly thought of Yun Shishir and Yun Tianyu. Knowing that something was wrong, he cautiously followed the man. Inside the pharmacy, Yun Tianyu was not aware of the approaching danger. Instead, he was studying the props in the glassware with great interest. Yun Shishir watched from the side with trepidation. She felt that such a haunted house was not for a child of Yun Tianyu's age. What worried her more was that Yun Tianyu did not seem to be afraid at all. Instead, he seemed to be curious about the setting. She was a little regretful and worried that it would negatively affect the child's mentality. Yu, let's go. It's a little spooky here. Yu raised his head and saw Yun Shishir's uncomfortable expression. He immediately said, "Okay." As the two walked out of the pharmacy, Yun Tianyu heard footsteps approaching. At first, he thought that it was a staff member in a costume trying to scare them. However, when the person came closer, he saw that it was an unfamiliar man wearing a cap. He was dressed in low-key attire, but his entire body was emitting a chilling murderous aura. This was especially so for the pair of eyes under the cap. When he raised his head slightly, his eyes revealed a sharp and frightening glint. Yun Tianyu was slightly startled and became vigilant. This was because he remembered that he was not among the visitors queuing to enter. He was not a visitor. Yun Tianyu subconsciously stood in front of Yun Shishir and stared fixedly at the man. He saw the man's hand on his waist move and take out a black object. Due to the dim lighting, Yun Tianyu had a slight case of night blindness, so it was difficult for him to distinguish things in the dark. However, Yun Shishir, who was behind him, clearly saw that the black thing was a pistol. She sucked in a breath of cold air as a terrifying chill rose from her heart. She immediately pulled Yun Tianyu behind her and took a step back while shielding him. Her actions were cautious as if the man before her was a scourge that would devour them all if she made a move. "You. Who are you? What do you want?" she asked cautiously. She did not know the man's identity, so she did not dare to act rashly. The man did not answer her question. Instead, he coldly raised his wrist and pointed the dark and eerie muzzle at them. Yun Shishir turned pale with fright. She immediately turned around and shielded the boy in her arms. "Be careful." A child's shrill scream came from behind. The man turned around alertly and saw a child running toward him. Xiao Yichen carried the panda and kicked off the wall. Using the momentum, he leaped into the air and landed a beautiful roundhouse kick on the man's face. Chapter 440. The man staggered a few steps back from this sudden attack. Xiao Yichen leaped forward like a nimble leopard and tried to snatch the desert eagle from the man's hand. The man, however, seemed to be a well-trained assassin. Hence he was highly skilled. He swiftly kicked Xiao Yichen in the chest, and the latter fell to the ground, caught off guard. Yun Shishir cried out in alarm when she saw this. The man got up from the ground, raised his hand, and pulled the trigger at Xiao Yichen. Bang! A silenced gunshot rang out, but little Yichen had already rolled to the side the moment he pulled the trigger. He hugged the panda at the side. The man pulled out another gun and fired at him repeatedly. Bang! 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 The enclosed space was instantly filled with the smell of gunpowder. He dodged nimbly, and with the cover of the plushie, he was not injured. However, when he looked at the panda plushie, it was already riddled with holes. That was the present he had won for Yu. Yet Xiao Yichen narrowed his eyes in anger and quickly pulled out a dagger from his sleeve. Whenever he went out, he would always carry a weapon with him for self-defense. Fairy Tale Valley's security was strict, but it was only for adults. Luckily for him, the dagger finally came in handy. He quickly threw the dagger at the man. The man tried to evade it, but the space inside the haunted house was too small. His neck was still cut by the flying dagger. Due to his large movement, he accidentally knocked into the prop cabinet. With a loud bang, the cabinet toppled backward. Xiao Yichen took advantage of his distraction to run toward Yun Sheshe. He grabbed Yun Sheshe's hand and told her, "Run! His target is you guys." Yun Sheshe was scared out of her wits. She did not care why the child was here or what was going on as she ran after Xiao Yichen. When they reached a fork in the road, Xiao Yichen pulled Yun Tianyu along the right path. Yun Tianyu looked back, but his mommy was nowhere to be seen. It was too dark and she must have taken the wrong path. Mommy! Yu was anxious and wanted to go back to look for her. Xiao Yichen grabbed his arm tightly. "Don't go! Go away! I want to find my mommy." In his desperation, Yu flung his hand away. He was worried about his mommy's safety and could not care less. Xiao Yichen angrily stomped his feet and chased after him. However, when they turned the corner, they bumped into the man who was chasing after them. Yun was startled, while Xiao Yu. This man's target was Yun Tianyu. Xiao Yichen immediately grabbed Yun Tianyu's arm and ran. As he ran, he said, "Don't worry, your mommy will be fine. His target is you. He's here to kill you. Do you understand?" Yun Tianyu's eyes widened in shock. He was clearly in disbelief. The man's footsteps followed closely behind him. Xiao Yichen anxiously looked back, only to see the man raise his wrist and aim at Yun Tianyu's back. He was about to pull the trigger. Xiao Yichen knew that something was wrong. He immediately pounced on Yun Tianyu and pinned him to the ground. Chapter 441. Bang! The bullet pierced through the air and flew past his hair, shattering the glassware on the cabinet beside him. Not far from them was an ambulance. A few staff members rushed over when they heard the commotion. Xiao Yichen seemed to have grasped at a life-saving straw as he shouted, "Uncle, uncle, someone's trying to kill us! Someone's trying to kill us!" The few staff members did not take his words to heart. In the haunted house, most of the frightened visitors would shout for help like this. In fact, they were all frightened by the ghosts. Hence they walked over and said with a smile, "Kids, don't be afraid. Uncle will bring you out." Halfway through their conversation, they saw that behind the two little munchkins, the man had yet to put away his gun. The cold muzzle of the gun was emitting a wisp of smoke. "Murder! Murder!" Before he could finish his words, a bullet pierced through his throat. Blood splattered on the wall. The pungent smell of blood permeated the air instantly. In the blink of an eye, the man's body fell limply to the ground, turning into a cold corpse. The other staff member was completely frightened and screamed, "Help! Help!" At this moment, a group of visitors was walking toward the exit. When they heard the gunshot and saw the corpse on the ground, a commotion broke out. "Murder! Someone's trying to kill us! Help!" Ear-piercing screams were incessant. The scene was chaotic and the crowd lost control. Using the cover, Xiao Yichen got up from the ground with Yu and groped for the exit. Yu's mind was in a mess. On one hand, he was worried about his mother's safety. On the other hand, he wanted to know the background of this man and why he wanted to kill him. For a moment, his thoughts were in a mess. Xiao Yichen pulled him along as he groped around the haunted house. With the crowd inside, he did not know where the exit was, so he did not know where it was. When he turned back to look at Yun Tianyu, he saw him clutching his chest and breathing heavily. His physical fitness was not good. Excessive running would only deplete his energy and cause breathing difficulties. "Are you okay?" Xiao Yichen looked at him worriedly. Yun Tianyu was panting heavily. His small hand clutched his chest tightly as his face contorted in pain. His left hand fumbled in his trouser pocket and finally found a bottle of medicine. He swallowed the medicine, and his brows relaxed a little. Xiao Yichen could not care less. He gritted his teeth and carried him on his back. Yu's heart skipped a beat. "You, don't speak, it's more important to conserve your energy." Xiao Yichen said this as he looked around. Yun Tianyu took out his phone to check the route. Closing his eyes slightly, every escape route on the haunted house's blueprint appeared clearly in his mind. He slowly said, "I know the way. Go straight ahead and turn left at the end." "Are you sure?" Little Yichen was a little skeptical. "Trust me." Okay, Following Yu Yu's direction, Xiao Chen carried him and dashed toward the exit. Yu Yu had a strong sense of direction. Even in the dark, he could tell which way would lead him to the exit with the help of the dim light. Chapter 442. Xiao Chen carried him on his back with nimble steps. His physical strength was considered outstanding even among teenagers, let alone children of his age. Soon, they successfully escaped from the haunted house. Outside the haunted house, the crowd was in a mess. Amidst the chaos, Xiao Chen vaguely saw a man hiding in the crowd, searching for them. Alarmed, he ran in the opposite direction. The man turned his gaze and quickly spotted Xiao Chen and Yun Tianyu in the crowd. He followed their footsteps and followed them closely. Yun Tianyu quickly recovered and struggled to get down from Xiao Chen's back. Xiao Chen held his hand tightly. Seeing the Ferris wheel not far away, he had an idea. Let's go. In front of the Ferris wheel, there were 2 long queues. With 2 VIP tickets, Xiao Chen successfully passed through the VIP passage and boarded the Ferris wheel with Yun Tianyu. The Ferris wheel slowly rose. Xiao Chen carefully looked down through the window. With his excellent eyesight, he spotted the man standing among the crowd looking up. He was shocked. This man was not simple. He did not lose them in such an environment and still managed to catch up with them. Was his tracking ability that good? In contrast to Xiao Chen's panic, Yun Tianyu calmly sat in his seat and dialed Li Hanlin's number. He requested for a security team to pick them up at the Ferris wheel within 5 minutes. After hanging up the phone, he leaned against a corner. His face was expressionless. Little Chen turned around and saw that the man's complexion was terrible. His lips were pale and he looked extremely weak. After the intense chase earlier, Xiao Chen knew that Yu Yu must be exhausted, but more than that, he thought that he had not experienced such a thrilling scene before. Hence, he thought that he was scared out of his wits, so he walked over and held his shoulders. With a slight smile he said, "Don't be afraid, I'll protect you." He was a little nervous and worried that his younger brother would not accept him. You want to protect me?" Yu Yu looked up, but he evaded the man's intimacy and avoided his touch. He didn't seem to be moved by his closeness. Instead, he maintained a distance. It was extremely unfamiliar. Xiao Chen's outstretched hand slowly clenched into a fist. In the end, he withdrew his hand somewhat hesitantly. Her fingertips still felt the warmth of his body. It was so warm and real. Xiao Chen clutched his wrist in a daze. He felt that his younger brother wasn't as approachable as he had imagined. "How are you going to protect me?" Yu Yu questioned coldly. Clearly, he felt that the child standing in front of him was so weak. He did not believe that the child could protect him. "I'm stronger and taller than you. I can definitely protect you," Xiao Chen said stubbornly. Yu Yu looked up slightly. His gaze was cold and indifferent. He did not seem to accept Xiao Chen's closeness, and there was a faint sense of alienation on his face. He looked at Xiao Chen. Even though he was sitting in his seat, Xiao Chen was much taller than him when he stood in front of him. He was tall enough for Xiao Chen to raise his head and look up at him. Xiao Chen was eager to prove that he had the ability to protect his younger brother. However, when his words reached Yu Yu's ears, they had a different meaning. Was this child mocking him for being shorter than him? Chapter 443. "Humph, you're obviously showing off to me that you're taller than me." "I'm not. You're not smart enough, so you're using your height to make up for it?" Yu Yu frowned unhappily. Xiao Chen panicked and tried to explain himself. "I'm not mocking you for being short. Don't misunderstand. Also, I'm not stupid." "You're not stupid." Yu Yu's lips suddenly curled into a mocking smile. "Then tell me, how much is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6? Give me an answer in 5 seconds. Xiao Chen had no time to protest. He quickly stretched out his chubby little hands and started counting with his fingers. He looked serious and was racing against time. "Time's up. What's your answer?" 20. Little Chen's head spun as he did the math. He hated it the most. 21. Idiot. "Don't call me an idiot," Little Chen pouted. His confidence had been smashed to smithereens, and he felt aggrieved. The little brother he tried his best to protect had such a vicious mouth. Moreover, he didn't seem to like him. But he really liked this little brother of his. He was different from the cold and arrogant attitude he had with other people. Standing in front of Yu, he was more like a helpless older brother who had never tried to coax anyone. However, the way he looked at Yu was gentle. The expression on his face was anxious and uneasy because he had been misunderstood. You caused me to be separated from Mommy. I don't want to talk to you. Yu was anxious when he thought about how Mommy was missing and didn't know what was going on. Hence, he turned his head and ignored him. I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't know she was your mommy. She's your mommy too. You didn't know? Yu glanced at him coldly from the corner of his eyes. His thin lips parted slightly as he said, Mui-chen, she's your biological mommy. Remember this well. She is my biological mommy? Xiaoyi-chen was a little confused. Initially, he knew that Yun Tianyu was his biological younger brother because blood relations could not lie. How could there be a child in this world who looked so similar to him, or even almost exactly the same? The same blood flowed in his veins. Therefore, he had an inexplicable telepathic connection with his younger brother. It had been there for as long as he could remember. He would often have a dream. In the dream, a child with the same face as him was walking far ahead while he chased after him with all his might. There seemed to be no end to the road, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch up with him. Gradually, as he grew up, he would often feel an inexplicable palpitation, or even heartache. Sometimes, his breathing would suddenly become hurried, and he would faint on the ground without any warning. Regarding his symptoms, the specialists were at a loss. After a series of examinations, they all said that his body was very healthy and did not have any illness or hidden illness. Not a clue. However, these symptoms did not stop there. They would often flare up without warning. As he grew up, his soul seemed to be able to enter that child's body in his dreams. Be it joy, anger, sorrow, or even illness, he could feel it as if it were his own body. He gradually understood that this was probably the shackles hidden in his bloodline. Chapter 444. Hence, when he first saw Yun Tianyu, he did not even question his identity and was certain that he was his younger brother. This was because the feeling this child gave him was exactly the same as in his dream. What he did not know, though, was that his biological mother was Yun Shishir. His first reaction was that Yun Shishir was Yun Tianyu's foster mother. Hence, he naturally assumed that Yun Tianyu was unaware of his real identity and had been kept in the dark all this while. Hence, he was very surprised by Yun Tianyu's words. I have a mommy, he reminded him softly. Brother, my mommy is also your mommy. Mui-chen, I only have one mommy. Yun Tianyu frowned. Although he knew that Mu Yaja had not mentioned who his biological mother was to Xiaoyi-chen, he was still dissatisfied with his brother's inability to differentiate right from wrong and acknowledge a thief as his mother behavior. Yes, she's your adoptive mother, but I can see that she treats you well. How do you say that idiom? He tried hard to recall and suddenly smacked his head. Yes, I remember now. Treat her as one's own. The corner of Yu's eyes twitched violently as he angrily said, You can't differentiate right from wrong, shut up. You're so fierce. Xiaoyi-chen was also a little angry. Can you not be so fierce to me? I'm your brother. That's because you don't even acknowledge your biological mother. Why should I acknowledge you? Yun Tianyu was angry at his ignorance and did not want to bother with him as he coldly retorted. He was like a summer insect that could not be compared to ice. All right, don't be angry. Xiaoyi-chen somewhat clumsily coaxed him. Now is not the time to bicker. Let's look for mommy together later. Yu frowned but did not say anything in the end. What's your name? Yu raised his head. His eyes flickered before he finally answered reluctantly. Yun Tianyu. Yun Tianyu? How do you write it? Xiaoyi-chen curiously grabbed his palm. Yun Tianyu wanted to retract his hand in shock, but he realized that Mui-chen was too strong. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free from his grip. Xiaoyi-chen didn't see the resistance in his eyes at all. He only wanted to learn how to write his name, so he wrote the character Yun on his palm stroke by stroke. His eyes were dark and bright as he looked at him. Is it this cloud? Yes. What about Tian? Xiaoyi-chen wrote the word Tian again. Is it written like this? Yes. Yun Tianyu gradually lost his patience. How could this fellow be so stupid that he could not even recognize words? The last word. Xiao Yichen wrote the word again on his palm and frowned. Is it this again? Yun Tianyu furrowed his brows in displeasure. It's the bless in bless. How do you write it? Yun Tianyu was so infuriated by him that he almost lost his temper. He coldly spat out. Idiot, stop talking. Being together with him was dragging down his IQ. Xiao Yichen then took out his phone and searched for how to write the word. Yun Tianyu suddenly saw the watch on his wrist. Frowning, he grabbed his wrist. Where did you get this watch? My daddy gave it to me for my birthday. Xiao Yichen answered. Looking at the smartwatch on Yu Yu's wrist, he asked curiously, Who gave it to you? Chapter 445. My mommy gave it to me as a birthday present. Yun Tianyu suddenly thought of something. Are your watch's GPS and Bluetooth functions turned on? Yes. Turn it off, he ordered at once. What's wrong? Don't ask so many questions. Turn it off first. With that, he turned off his watch's Bluetooth and GPS functions. Xiao Yichen did not know why he made such a request, but he did as he was told. Yun Tianyu suddenly felt that something was amiss. What was even stranger was that the Ferris wheel, which was supposed to run for 5 minutes, did not stop even after 10 minutes had passed. It had already spun for so long, and it showed no signs of stopping. Was it malfunctioning? A sense of uneasiness rose in his heart. He had a feeling that the Ferris wheel had been spinning for so long. It was not as simple as a malfunction. He stood up and walked to the door. With his hand on the door, he looked at the crowd through the window. At that moment, the machine suddenly shook violently. The inside of the carriage swayed for a moment. Then, the operation of the machine came to a sudden halt. The Ferris wheel suddenly stopped running. All the safety measures were removed, and the door lock was automatically unlocked. Due to the shaking of the carriage, Yun Tianyu's body swayed and he lost his balance. He quickly reached out to grab the door handle. However, he didn't expect that the door would be slowly pushed open with his support. At this moment, his entire body was leaning on the door. The door lock was suddenly unlocked, and the door opened outward. His body leaned toward the door. Yun Tianyu was shocked. At this moment, their carriage had stopped at the highest level. Below him was a few dozen meters in the air. The strong wind blew, messing up his hair. At this moment, he could not support his center of gravity and was falling. Yun Tianyu's face turned pale. This accident happened so suddenly that he did not even have time to react before his body fell halfway. Yu. At this critical moment, Xiao Yichen pounced on him and grabbed his arm tightly. High up in the air, Yun Tianyu's body hung outside the carriage. His feet were in the air, and one of his arms was barely hanging on to the edge of the carriage. His other arm was tightly held by Xiao Yichen. Even though he was fast, he was still dragged half a meter away by Yu Yu. Yun Tianyu raised his head and saw Xiao Yichen's face turning red from overexertion. Blue veins gradually appeared on his forehead, and thick, cold sweat trickled down his cheeks. Yun Tianyu was a little surprised. His older brother's grip strength was amazing. Just one of his arms was enough to support his entire weight. Xiao Yichen struggled to hold on to his hand, but the car, which was suspended in mid-air, continued to sway uncontrollably. While bearing the weight of Yun Tianyu, it still had to maintain its center of gravity. He didn't know if the machine had malfunctioned or something else, but it just stopped moving. Xiao Yichen's body gradually slid out of the car. Seeing that the two little munchkins were about to fall out of the car, Xiao Yichen gritted his teeth and reached out to grab hold of the window. Only then did he manage to stabilize the situation. Yun Tianyu's arm, which was being held tightly by him, was obviously strained. The sharp pain from the tearing of his muscles made him break out in cold sweat. Xiao Yichen was not in a better state. His one arm was bearing almost all of Yun Tianyu's weight. If not for his training, his arm would have been dislocated by now. Chapter 446. Hold on to me, don't let go. Xiao Yichen squeezed out these words with much difficulty. Yun Tianyu grabbed Mu Yichen's wrist. He could feel his trembling wrist. His heart ached as he looked at the latter's face, which was covered in cold sweat. He clenched his teeth tightly as he tried to think of a way to climb into the car. He knew that Xiao Yichen could not hold on for long. However, the car was already swaying due to the tilt. He could feel the vibrations coming from the car with just a slight movement. After a few attempts, Yun Tianyu gave up. At this moment, he had calmed down as fast as he could and was thinking of a way to turn the situation around. As he pondered, beads of cold sweat rolled down from his forehead to his cheeks and were blown away by the strong wind. On the one hand, it was because of his nervousness and fear. He knew very well that a child's endurance was limited. Even if little Yi Chen was unwilling to let go of his hand in order to save him, his arm would cramp, dislocate, or even break under the heavy weight for a long time. When that happened, both of them would lose control and fall to the ground. In order to hold on to him, Xiao Yi Chen exerted all his strength. He gritted his teeth so hard that he wanted to break them. He was so focused on this that he did not have the energy to think of anything else. The situation was at a stalemate. After being separated from the two little lads, Yun Shishir fumbled around the haunted house for quite some time. Perhaps it was because when a person was extremely worried about another matter, they would not be afraid of certain terrifying things. Therefore, when she accidentally fell to the ground and touched a prop of a rotten corpse, she did not feel the slightest bit of fear. She was only thinking about how the two children were doing. Were they all right? She was so worried that she was about to cry. She had a terrible sense of direction. When she finally found the first aid station, there was no one there. However, she was lucky enough to find a survival blueprint on the table. She held it in her hands as if she had found a treasure. Following the escape route outlined on the blueprint, she finally ran out of the haunted house. However, she saw that the crowd outside was in a mess, and there were people shouting for help from time to time. Yun Shishir kept searching for Yu Yu and Xiao Yi Chen in the crowd. She was so anxious that her voice trembled. "Sorry, have you seen 2 6-year-old children?" "Hello, may I ask if you've seen the 2 children?" Many people turned their heads indifferently. In her anxiety, Yun Shishir heard someone in the crowd say, "Quick, go take a look. The Ferris wheel has malfunctioned, and the 2 children are trapped on it." When she heard this, she immediately pushed the crowd. She grabbed the man's collar and asked in a panic, "What did you say? You said that 2 children are trapped on the Ferris wheel?" "Yes." "What kind of children are they?" "I can't see clearly. I only know that they are 2 children." As soon as he said that, Yun Shishir immediately ran in the direction of the Ferris wheel. Chapter 447. Li Hanlin was on high alert. No matter who they were, even if they were children, he ordered them to stay away. When Yun Shishir arrived at the scene, she was, without exception, chased away by the security personnel. She was in a daze as she was constantly pushed and even warned. As she was being pushed, she looked up and saw the 2 children hanging from the Ferris wheel. Her eyesight was not good, but from the color of their clothes, she could tell that the children hanging outside the window were Yu Yu. "Yu Yu!" She cried out in alarm and immediately struggled to get up. She cried and shouted, "The 2 up there are my children. Something happened to them. I can't leave, I can't leave." The security guards did not listen to her explanation. Li Hanlin had ordered that no matter who they were, they should stay away and not get close. Yun Shishir held back her tears and said, "I don't know who gave you the order, but please understand that I am the mother of those 2 children. Please tell them to let me go." The 2 security guards looked at each other. In the end, they still felt a little sympathetic. Seeing that there was nothing suspicious about her, they didn't dare to take it lightly and sent someone to report it. Not long after, Li Hanlin arrived. When he saw that it was Yun Shishir, he immediately said, "Miss Yun, you're here." "Principal Li, why are you here?" Yun Shishir was shocked, but she did not have time to think. "Yu Yu is up there. My 2 children are up there. What should I do?" "Don't panic, I've already sent someone to think of a way." Li Hanlin held the walkie-talkie. "When will the emergency backup arrive?" "Mr. Li, we're already thinking of a way," the person reported. D***. Li Hanlin gritted his teeth and cursed. The staff had just reported that the Ferris wheel had malfunctioned, not because of the machine, but because of human error. Human error. This meant that the Ferris wheel malfunction was not accidental, but premeditated. He had sent someone to check the surveillance footage, but before the Ferris wheel malfunctioned, the closed circuit system had been cut off, so all the surveillance footage during that period of time had been lost. Right now, he couldn't think of anything else. He could only wait for help. The malfunction of the Ferris wheel had been fixed, but when the children were in danger, they had to consider their safety first, so it could not be started. Yun Shirshir stood at the bottom of the Ferris wheel and stared at the carriage hanging at the top with trepidation. Due to the tilt on one side, the carriage seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Yun Tianyu was hanging outside the carriage for an unknown period of time. The strong wind was blowing at high altitudes, and his body was already thin and frail. Her heart clenched tightly. She nervously covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. She wanted to do something, but she was completely powerless at the moment. The only thing she could do was to watch helplessly. This feeling of powerlessness and defeat filled his entire body. If she could, even if she had to use her life in exchange for the safety of these two children, she would not hesitate to do so. Inside the Ferris wheel, Xiao Yichen and Yun Tianyu had been in a stalemate for more than 10 minutes. Both of them were on the verge of exhaustion. Chapter 448. One of his hands was fastened to the car's safety handrail while the other was gripping Yun Tianyu's arm tightly. His eyes were fierce and focused. Perhaps due to the force exerted by him, he had unknowingly bitten the corner of his lip, causing a trickle of blood to seep out. Yun Tianyu reached out his hand again, wanting to hook onto the car door, but the distance was not enough, so he gave up once more. Time ticked by. Second by second. Xiao Yichen's strength was rapidly depleting. He forced his eyes open. Even though sweat had seeped into his eyes, he did not dare to blink. Xiao Yichen looked at Yun Tianyu and slowly said, "You, I don't think I can hold on for much longer." He knew how much strength he had left. 10 minutes was already the limit of the limit. Not to mention a child, even an adult man would find it difficult to hold on for so long. It was already a miracle. He knew very well that if this continued, he would lose feeling in his arm due to numbness. It might even be dislocated or worse, fractured. Yun Tianyu's emotions had calmed down, so much so that it was strange. He knew that it was not easy to hold on for so long. He also knew that Xiao Yichen had done his best to save him without regard for his own safety. He was indeed at his limit now. He opened his mouth and wanted to tell him, "If you can't hold on any longer, just let me go. At least, save one person." He also wanted to say, "If I'm doomed this time, you must protect Mommy on my behalf." However, before he could open his mouth, Xiao Yichen calmly said, "Don't be afraid, I won't let go." Yun Tianyu's eyes lost focus as he dazedly raised his head to look at him with empty eyes. Under his overlapping and unfocused gaze, Xiao Yichen changed from his usual cold and arrogant expression to one of doting gentleness. He lightly said, "I'm your brother. I'll protect you." Yun Tianyu's heart surged with shock when he heard this. Her tone was calm, her words were simple, and there were no fancy vows. However, her true feelings towards him were completely revealed. The corners of Yun Tianyu's lips, which were originally calm, slowly curled into a gentle smile. If he didn't give up, then he shouldn't give up either. Even if he had to risk it, he couldn't give up. Yun Tianyu gently closed his eyes, and the entire structure of the car appeared in his mind. With a rough idea in mind, he said, "I have an idea." Xiao Yichen frowned and immediately asked, "What is it?" "Behind you, the seat should be equipped with a seatbelt. Do you see it?" Xiao Yichen turned around and saw the seatbelt. He nodded in response. "I see it. It has a bearing capacity of 200 kilograms. Can you catch it?" "Let me try." "Wait." Yun Tianyu said, "If a person exerts force with both hands at the same time, it's easy to dislocate both arms." Xiao Yichen was stunned. "Then what should we do?" "Now, I'll grab your arm with both hands. You can use less strength with this arm. Then, carefully grab the seatbelt and use the seatbelt to pull me up." With that, he paused for a moment before continuing. "Needless to say, your arm will be dislocated if you do that." Chapter 449. Xiao Yichen ignored his last sentence. He tried his best to hold on to the safety lever and leaned his body forward slightly to ensure that Yun Tianyu could grab hold of his arm with both hands. Their actions caused the security personnel below to exclaim in alarm. They were all professionally trained security personnel and were well aware of the limits of the human body. They knew that such an action was extremely dangerous for Xiao Yichen. Yun Shirshir watched on with trepidation. Her heart was beating faster and faster. She was constantly in agony. Yun Tianyu quickly grabbed hold of Xiao Yichen's arm. Although his grip was not as strong as Xiao Yichen's, in this extremely dangerous situation, A person's instinctive will to survive came into play. He gritted his teeth, grabbed hold of Xiao Yichen's arm and said, "I've got a firm grip." "Are you sure?" Xiao Yichen was clearly worried that his grip was not strong enough. If he let go, Yu would fall. "Yes. Go grab that safety belt." "Okay. Be careful. You must tell me if you can't hold on." With that, Xiao Yichen reached for the safety belt. He failed to grab hold of it after several attempts. However, he was not discouraged. He was racing against time, knowing that every second was a great test for Yun Tianyu. Finally, after much effort, he managed to grab hold of the safety belt. After wrapping the safety belt around his wrist a few times and holding it tightly, Xiao Yichen turned his head and said, "I've got it. Now, I'll pull you up. You must hold on to my arm." Okay. Yun Tianyu was silent for half a second before he vowed, "I know you can do it. I believe in you." Okay. Xiao Yichen smiled and began to pull him up with all his might. Gritting his teeth, he exerted the last bit of strength in his body and, with a low growl, dragged the boy into the car in an instant. As he pulled Yun Tianyu up, his elbow was dislocated with a crack. Yun Tianyu's left wrist was also dislocated because he exerted too much force. The two little lads rolled into the car. Yun Tianyu quickly grabbed hold of the other safety belt and put it on his shoulder to stabilize his center of gravity. Below them, a series of cheers could be heard. Yun Shishir was stunned for a long time. Her eyes widened in disbelief. The two little guys actually saved themselves. Oh God! This is a miracle. Only when the car door was closed and locked by Xiao Yichen did she believe that a miracle had truly happened. In her agitation, tears fell like rain. Her body, due to the momentary relaxation after excessive tension, she was limp. She half knelt on. Until now her heartbeat was still unable to calm. As dislocated. 2. For a moment, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. However, he seemed to be able to tolerate pain. Even though his wrist was dislocated and deformed, his face remained as calm as still water. Instead, he was more concerned about Yun Tianyu's arm. "How's your wrist?" "I think it's dislocated." Yun Tianyu could not tolerate pain, but he was strong enough to endure it. Even though he was drenched in cold sweat, he did not cry out in pain. After a moment of silence, he was still worried about Xiao Yichen's injury. Chapter 450. "Are you okay?" he asked softly and carefully. His tone was no longer as cold and distant as before. Xiao Yichen was agitated by his change in attitude. Although he did not show it on his face, it was reflected in his trembling voice. I am fine." "Your elbow is dislocated. Does it hurt?" "It should be very painful. After persisting for so long, his nerves must be numb." Now with a dislocated elbow, Xiao Yichen hurriedly consoled him. "Don't worry. I'm used to it. This is a common occurrence during training." A child's world was very simple. Perhaps, Yun Tianyu was previously hostile toward Xiao Yichen and Mu Yaja. He was afraid that these two would barge into his carefully guarded world and snatch away his mommy's love. However, a friend in need was a friend indeed. He was not heartless or cold-blooded. Moreover, they were connected by blood. Looking at Xiao Yichen's injured arm now, his heart ached more or less. Yun Tianyu gave Li Hanlin a call and asked him to start the Ferris wheel. Li Hanlin immediately picked up the walkie-talkie and asked the control panel to start the machine. The Ferris wheel slowly resumed operation. The two little lads sat facing each other. Both of them looked quite disheveled. Their hair was messy, their cheeks were wet with cold sweat, and their faces were flushed red. However, when they looked at each other, they seemed to have an innate understanding and smiled at each other. "You're better than I thought." Yun Tianyu pursed his lips and gave a rare compliment. It was very rare for him to praise someone. This time, however, it was from the bottom of his heart. If not for Xiao Yichen's strong physique, who had persisted for so long, he really did not know what would have been waiting for him. Xiao Yichen blushed shyly at this compliment. He opened his mouth a few times, but no words came out. He was obviously shy. The Ferris wheel slowly descended to the ground. The tourists poured out of the car like a tidal wave. The security personnel were in charge of guiding the crowd. When Yun Tianyu and Xiao Yichen came out holding each other's arms, Yun Shishir broke through the crowd and ran toward them. When Xiao Yichen saw Yun Shishir, His heart skipped a beat. Then, he felt a surge of warmth. He had narrowly escaped death, and the first person he saw was this woman. Even though he still didn't know who this woman was or if she was his biological mother, he still felt that it was great. His heart felt very warm. To be honest, if this gentle woman in front of her was her mommy, how good would that be? He did not hold much affection for Mu Wanru. After all, he was not her biological child. Mu Wanru's love for him was only superficial. However, no matter how well she did it, the child could not feel any maternal love from her. Naturally, he would not be close to her. Like her very much. If this woman was his biological mother, then he would acknowledge her without hesitation. If she was his mommy, then it would be a very blissful thing. Xiao Yichen clenched his fists tightly. He was a little nervous. When Yu Yu saw her, his originally calm face immediately changed to one of grievance and shock. He pouted his little mouth and his watery eyes were instantly filled with tears. "Mommy, Wu!" Her voice was so sweet that it scared Xiao Yichen. The latter's face was filled with horror and disbelief. It was even more frightening than when he was in imminent danger. Chapter 451. Why? He was calm and collected earlier, but why did his IQ seem to drop by 8 levels the moment he was in front of Yun Shishir? He was just like a childish child acting coquettishly in front of his mother. Was this an act? Xiao Yichen was dumbfounded. Yun Tianyu was agitated that Yun Shishir was safe and sound. On the one hand, he was whining to her so that Yun Shishir could comfort him. His skills were naturally top-notch, so tears streamed down his face instantly. Seeing this, Yun Shishir felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. It was about to shatter into pieces. She immediately half-knelt in front of him and carefully pulled him into her embrace. Her throat was choked with sobs. "Yu Yu, my baby, don't cry. Don't cry. Mommy is here. Mommy is here." Yun Shishir kept comforting him. Her heart was in so much pain that she forgot about Xiao Yichen, who was standing at the side. Yun Tianyu held his dislocated wrist and said delicately, "Mommy, my wrist is broken. It hurts." His coquettish tone was the complete opposite of his cold and calm tone on the Ferris wheel. Xiao Yichen almost vomited blood. He could not tell at all. His younger brother was so good at acting spoiled. Yun Shishir looked at his dislocated wrist and felt her heart wrench. When she looked at Yun Tianyu's pale face, her tears flowed uncontrollably. Her heart was in so much pain that she wished that she could bear all the pain that Yun Tianyu was suffering. "Yu Yu, you're injured. It's Mommy's fault. Mommy didn't protect you well." Yun Shishir's heart was in so much pain that it felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart. She kept apologizing to Yu Yu, feeling that she had not fulfilled her responsibility to protect the child. She blamed herself endlessly, and her heart ached so much that her tears fell like rain. Xiao Yichen stood by the side and watched helplessly. His heart ached. He suddenly remembered that today was his birthday. It was supposed to be a happy birthday with his father, but the Song sisters came uninvited. Not only did they disturb the birthday atmosphere, but they also sowed discord and made his father angry with him. They even left him alone in the amusement park. Mu Yaja knew that this was a punishment. However, after experiencing such a dangerous situation, Mu Yaja's heart was filled with complaints and grievances. Suddenly, he was envious of Yun Tianyu. It was great to have a mother who doted on him so much. It wasn't just a little, but a lot of envy that seeped deep into his bones. He was so envious that he was a little jealous. He felt that Yun Shishir's body was like a warm sun. When he got closer he felt warm. Xiao Yichen pursed his lips and greedily took a careful step toward Yun Shishir's direction. He got closer and closer. It was as if he would be satisfied just by standing a little closer to her. Yun Tianyu caught his little action from the corner of his eye. He lifted his head from Yun Shishir's embrace and looked at him. Following his gaze, Yun Shishir looked up as well. Yun Tianyu subtly shrunk his body and gave Yun Shishir half the space in her embrace. He hugged her shoulders and whispered into her ear, "Mommy, Big Brother saved me. His name is Mu Yichen." Big Brother. Although he did not call him Big Brother in front of Xiao Yichen, it was enough to prove that he acknowledged Xiao Yichen from the bottom of his heart. This meant that he acknowledged this Big Brother. Chapter 452. It was just that he had always been shy about expressing it. However, it was precisely because he approved of it that he gave up half of the space in Yun Shishir's arms. In the past, he had never liked any child sharing Yun Shirshir's love with him. But now he had thought it through. He shouldn't have been so selfish. This way of thinking was a little too childish. Mommy probably liked Xiao Yichen too, right? If he stood in the way, Mommy would definitely be sad. He would never do anything that would make Mommy sad. Yun Shirshir looked at Xiao Yichen. At this moment, he was standing helplessly in front of her, holding his dislocated arm. He looked a little uneasy and uneasy. Her gaze fell on his deformed elbow joint, and her heart ached even more. She didn't know why he was in this amusement park, and she didn't know why he suddenly appeared to save them. Yes, she was saved by this child. He was only 6 years old, but he saved her and Yu in the nick of time. She was very grateful and touched by him, but more than that, she was flustered after surviving a disaster. However, she didn't dare to speak. If she was too proactive, she was afraid that she would scare the child or cause him to reject her. Thus she asked carefully, "Xiao Yichen, are you okay?" Hearing her call his name, Xiao Yichen widened his eyes in shock. His eyelashes trembled slightly, and his lips couldn't help but tremble. He hadn't shed a single tear during that dangerous moment, but now his eyes were slightly moist. Her voice was so gentle, like a warm little spring that flowed into his heart. His body, which had turned cold from fear, suddenly warmed up. He didn't know how to respond to her and appeared a little clumsy. He wanted to tell her that he was fine and that he didn't want her to worry. But subconsciously, he wanted to tell her that his dislocated arm was actually very painful. The thrilling experience he had just experienced had left him in a state of shock. The fear in his heart had yet to dissipate, and he was hoping for her comfort and heartache. He had never been good with words, so he didn't know how to express his feelings. Yun Shirshir was also very patient. She extended her palm to him and slowly opened it. "Come, let me have a look, okay?" He looked at Yun Shirshir's outstretched hand. It was as white as jade, and her fingers were long and slender. They were warm and soft. It was especially beautiful. She thought of Mu Wanru's hands. They were bony with thin joints and looked like 5 sharp knives. On the other hand, Yun Shirshir's hands were beautiful. Xiao Yichen nodded timidly. He took a step closer to Yun Shirshir and tried to look at her face. However, he saw that she was looking at him gently, patiently and warmly. Xiao Yichen's heart seemed to be touched by this smile. The mother and son seemed to have a telepathic connection as they walked towards her. Yun Shirshir carefully put her arm around his shoulders, and Xiao Yichen took the opportunity to lean into her embrace. However, he carefully hid his hands behind his back. He didn't want her to worry. Yun Shirshir's sharp eyes caught this small movement of his. Sometimes, although these two children didn't grow up together, they would often do the same thing. In the past, Yu was also afraid that she would be worried and upset, so he didn't tell her about certain things. "Your hand is injured? Let me have a look." She couldn't hide the worry on her face, and the heartache in her eyes was almost visible. Chapter 453. Xiao Yichen shook his head. He was clearly the one who was injured, yet he was the one comforting her. "It's all right, it doesn't hurt." "How can it not hurt? Let me see." Yun Shirshir could not help but let go of his hand. She carefully lifted his arm and, as expected, his elbow was dislocated and deformed. Her heart ached so much that her fingertips trembled uncontrollably. With a lump in her throat, she said sadly, "It must be very painful." The thought of the earlier scene made his heart palpitate. The Ferris wheel had stopped, and Yun Tianyou's entire body was hanging outside the carriage. If not for little Yichen's tight grip on his arm, the two lads would most likely have met with misfortune. It was so high up. Dozens of meters. It was as high as a 20-story building. What if they fell? They would definitely be smashed to pieces. She had almost lost her 2 children. At that critical moment, she could not do anything and could only watch helplessly as her imagination ran wild. Yun Shirshir still felt a lingering fear at the thought of that tragic scene. "Thank you for saving Yu. Thank you." Yun Shirshir was extremely grateful to this child. Her heart ached so much that tears fell from her eyes as she hugged the 2 disheveled children. Her heartache seemed to have infected Xiao Yichen as well. He opened his mouth and tried several times to call out that warm and unfamiliar word, but in the end, he only managed to utter a few vague syllables. Inside, he kept repeating, "Mommy, Mommy." It was very strange. The woman before him was clearly a stranger, Yet it was so magical that there was a special bond between mother and son. Even though he had not been with her for the past 6 years, he still could not help but feel an inexplicable closeness toward her. She could give him warmth that Mu Wanru could not. However, what he knew all this while restrained him, so he could not easily call out those 2 words. Even so, he still yearned for this warmth from deep in his heart. The ambulance arrived in no time. Xiao Yichen and Yu Yu were carefully placed on stretchers and carried into the ambulance. Yun Shishir followed closely behind the medical team. Along the way, the nurses performed various basic tests on them. Yun Shishir, who was standing at the side, felt her heart clench as she repeatedly asked about the 2 children's condition. The nurses hurriedly comforted her, saying that there was no danger from the preliminary tests. As for the rest, they would have to undergo further tests at the hospital to confirm their condition. They told her not to worry too much. After all, the 2 children were still in good spirits. Other than their dislocated hands, there should be no other major issues. Only then did Yun Shishir's heart. Yu Yu's a little tired. Her lips curled into a smile as she patted her son's head. Close your eyes and sleep. We'll be at the hospital soon. Mommy, you must tell the doctor that Yu Yu is afraid of pain. You have to be gentle and not rough, the little boy warned with a serious expression. Yun Shishir did not know whether to laugh or cry. The nurses at the side laughed as well. Little boy, don't worry. We'll be very gentle. Don't worry. Then I'm relieved. His brows relaxed as if he had heaved a sigh of relief. His witty sigh made the nurses smile again. This little guy is so cute. He looks so fresh and his skin is so tender. He's so handsome. Yes. He'll definitely be very handsome when he grows up. I'm afraid he'll charm many little girls. Chapter 454. Yun Shishir shifted her gaze to Xiao Yichen. He was lying there motionlessly, but his gaze never left her. He was captivated by her every frown and smile. Xiao Yichen blushed when he saw Yun Shishir looking at him. He shyly averted his gaze and felt so awkward that he didn't know where to place his hands. Yun Shishir slowly reached out and placed her hand on his. Her warmth traveled from the back of his hand all the way to his heart. Xiao Yichen's face turned even redder. His heart thumped furiously, and he was so nervous that he didn't dare to look at her. Are you alone? Yun Shishir asked. Why don't I see your daddy? Xiao Yichen's face darkened slightly at the mention of Mu Yaja. He doesn't want me anymore. He felt so aggrieved that his eyelashes fluttered down. How could that be? He dotes on you a lot. But he doesn't want me anymore. Really? Xiao Yichen clenched his fists so tightly that his fingertips almost pierced through his palms. Don't overthink it. What exactly happened? Yun Shishir comforted him. After being guided patiently, the little fellow finally told him the whole story. He told her about how Mu Yaja had given him a surprise birthday present, and how he wanted to accompany him to Fairy Tale Valley to the Song Sisters coming over to cause trouble. In the end, he talked about how his father had gotten angry with him because of Song and Shi, and even left him alone in the amusement park. He told him everything in detail, no matter how big or small. Originally, he shouldn't have shed tears, but children were usually pretentious in front of their mothers. As he spoke, his eyes reddened, and tears flowed down his cheeks uncontrollably. This matter had obviously hurt him deeply. Yun Shishir's heart ached when she heard it. She couldn't believe that Mu Yaja was such a cold-blooded father that he would leave his child alone in such a huge amusement park. She also learned from Li Hanlin that before Mu Yaja left, he had specifically instructed Li Hanlin to take good care of Xiao Yichen. Although she couldn't agree with how Mu Yaja had entrusted his child to an outsider, Yun Shishir still believed that Xiao Yichen was still in his heart. Although Xiao Yichen shouldn't take full responsibility for the previous incident, it was inevitable that he would let his emotions affect his decisions and solve the problem in the wrong way. As a parent, she should patiently guide him until he untangled the knot in his heart. Perhaps a father's love wasn't as delicate as a mother's love, so he couldn't solve the problem from the root. At this time, what she should do was to straighten out the knot in the child's heart and let him understand his father. She shouldn't stand on the child's side and instigate conflict. Hence, she said, your daddy definitely cares about you. You shouldn't think of him that way. He cares about Song Enya and Song Enshi, not me. Xiao Yichen held back his tears and said with reddened eyes, Today is my birthday. We should celebrate it properly. Yoon Shirshir patiently comforted him again, telling him not to think too much. The ambulance soon arrived at the hospital. The two little guys were carried to the operating trolley and hurriedly sent to the emergency room. Yoon Shirshir anxiously followed behind until she was politely blocked outside the door by a nurse. She then sat on the long bench outside the door in a daze, not knowing what to do. Chapter 455. Inside the doctor's office at the hospital. Song Enya sat anxiously in front of the doctor. The doctor looked at her, then at the man standing behind her with a cold expression. He slowly said, "The child has a soft tissue contusion on his head, and he has a mild concussion. The wound has been disinfected and stitched up. Don't let it come into contact with water for the next few days, and avoid spicy food." "Stitches?" Song Enya was startled and could not help but interrupt him. "Yes, how can he not be stitched up? The wound is a little deep. The child probably fell down the stairs and hit his head on the corner." The doctor adjusted his glasses and spoke in a more respectful tone. If it were any other patient, he would have long lost his patience after being interrupted repeatedly. However, he knew this woman's identity, so he treated her with utmost politeness and caution regardless of whether he offended her. Song Enya was stunned. "Is the wound that deep? Concussion. Is it that serious?" The doctor patiently explained, "It's just a mild concussion. It's not particularly serious, so there's usually no need for special treatment. He'll slowly recover with proper rest." "Will there be any impact on the brain? Will there be repercussions or something like that?" "No." The doctor rolled his eyes inwardly. "How can it be that serious? This woman is simply medically illiterate." Song Enya asked many more questions, most of which were whether the stitches on the back of Song Enshi's head would leave a scar. The answer was yes. It was inevitable that there would be a scar, and it would be difficult for hair to grow in that area in the future. Fortunately, the wound was not too big. It was only 3 stitches, and the area was about the size of a thumb. Girls had a lot of hair, so they just needed to cover it up. Mu Yaja's thoughts, however, were not on Song Enshi at all. In fact, he knew Xiao Yichen's character very well. Song Enshi kept saying that Xiao Yichen had pushed her down and even bullied her. However, the truth was that he was not present at the scene, so he could only know a thing or two about the situation from the child. The only thing he was certain of was that Xiao Yichen would not do such a bad thing. Compared to children his age, his personality was considered more mature. Therefore, he rarely played with children his age and always felt that they were childish. Therefore, it was even more impossible for him to take the initiative to bully a child, let alone commit such a vile act. However, the situation at that time was rather chaotic, and he did not have the time to understand what had happened. Song Enshi's cries alone were enough to give him a headache. At that time, the situation was urgent. The only thing he could do was to send the child to the hospital as soon as possible. After the incident, he deduced that Song Enshi and Xiao Yichen must have gotten into some sort of conflict. Regardless of who started the conflict, Song Enshi must have bitten Xiao Yichen first. In a moment of desperation, Xiao Yichen pushed her away. Xiao Yichen was a child who knew his limits. He had once warned him not to bully other children with violence. He had always been strict with himself and had done a good job. Perhaps Song Enshi had been pushed and tripped on the steps, causing her head to bleed. That was probably the case. That was his guess. As a father, of course, he would choose to believe in his child. Moreover, his love for Song Enshi was just for show. Xiao Yichen was his real son. If he didn't love him, who would he love? Chapter 456. He, too, wanted to give Xiao Yichen an unforgettable and blissful birthday. He had also pushed back many cases and even ended his agenda early to rush back and give him a surprise. But who would have thought that this birthday party would end in such a way where both sides would suffer? When they walked out of the doctor's office, Mu Yaja strode in front with Song Enya trailing behind him. She looked at the man's tall and handsome back and wanted to say something several times, but she stopped herself each time. This man's lofty image in her heart had always been irreplaceable. She had liked to stick to him since she was young. Logically speaking, since Jiang Qiming and Jiang Yishan were nieces, she should address this man as uncle. However, she felt that calling him uncle was too distant, so she always called him Brother Mu, as if this form of address was more intimate. As she grew older, this feeling gradually evolved into a young girl's throbbing heart and adoration. Although the two were related by blood, there were many marriages between cousins in the rich and powerful society, so there were no restrictions. She had dreamed of becoming Mu Yaja's bride since she was young. This had always been her wish. It was just that he already had a fiancé. This became the biggest thorn in her heart. There was no doubt that Mu Yaja was a perfect man. She was proud and arrogant, thinking that only such a man was worthy of her. The Song family was one of the most powerful and influential families in the capital. In terms of status, she and Brother Mu were a true match. That Mu Wanru, who came from nowhere, was not qualified to be Brother Mu's fiancé. Song Enya looked down on her very much. After deliberating for a moment, she caught up with Mu Yaja and walked beside him. She said cautiously, "Brother Mu, there are some things that I don't know if I should say." Mu Yaja, who was in a state of turmoil, only frowned when he heard her words. He walked into the smoking room, took out a cigarette from the cigarette box, lit it, and took a deep puff. Song Enya followed him in. Seeing his cold face and furrowed brows, she immediately thought of something and said, "Brother Mu, are you worried about Xiaoyi Chen?" Mu Yaja looked up at her but did not say a word. Song Enya continued, "Although Xiaoyi Chen shouldn't have bullied Inchi like that, Brother Mu, you were too cruel to leave him alone at the amusement park. Xiaoyi Chen may have trained in the special forces since he was young, but do you really feel at ease leaving him alone?" Ease? Of course he was worried. He regretted it the moment he left him behind. However, as a father, the dignity he should have was not to be looked down upon. Little Yi Chen had never disobeyed him, especially in front of outsiders. He had always been strict with him. In such a situation, even if he felt wronged, he should have suppressed it no matter what. He should not have added fuel to the fire. A 6-year-old child should give way to a 5-year-old girl. This was the philosophy of the upper-class gentleman and the family's unspoken rule. It was not to be violated. He just wanted to teach him a lesson. Besides, how could an insensible child be angry with her? How could that be? However, Mu Yaja did not say anything. Disciplining the child was his family's business, and he did not like outsiders interfering. Chapter 457. Mu Yaja's eyes flashed with impatience at his niece's words. Song Enya did not bother to look at his expression as she continued, "Still, it's good to teach the child a lesson. Children shouldn't be spoiled, especially boys. If they don't follow the rules from a young age, they won't be like those hedonistic sons of rich families when they grow up. They won't be disciplined and will ruin the family's discipline. Because of this, I don't think you've done anything wrong." Her words didn't go through the filter of her brain. Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes slightly, and displeasure quickly appeared on his face. Anchi has never suffered like this before. She even had to get 3 stitches in her back. Oh my God. She's always been vain. If she finds out about this, she'll definitely kick up a fuss. Enya. Mu Yaja flicked the ash off his cigarette and took one last puff before extinguishing it in the ashtray. He then slowly said, "Mu Yichen is my son." Ha! She did not understand his expression, let alone the meaning behind his words. No matter how bad it is, it's not up to outsiders to judge. His voice was not loud, but it was powerful and filled with coldness. She was stunned. Only then did she realize that what she had said earlier was indeed inappropriate. She was extremely vexed. "Brother Mu." Mu Yaja looked at her coldly, his tone icy. "I dote on you because you're my cousin. You've been willful since you were young. Perhaps everyone dotes on you. But I think you know that there are some bottom lines about me that can't be crossed." Song Enchi's heart skipped a beat. She repeatedly adjusted her expression before she awkwardly tugged at the corner of her lips. "Brother Mu, I'm sorry. I understand what you mean. I went overboard. Besides, you should go back and ask your sister what she did to anger Chen." Mu Yaja walked up to her. "Today is his birthday, and I should have accompanied him. I shouldn't have come with you guys in the first place. I'm very unhappy that this happened too." He was angry. Startled, Song Enya quickly explained, "No matter how willful and she is, she can't possibly. This matter ends here. Don't talk about it anymore." Mu Yaja interrupted her impatiently and walked around her. Song Enya could sense that something was amiss. Feeling vexed at her self-righteous attitude earlier, she hurriedly chased after him. Ouch, ouch, ouch. There were 2 special-grade intensive care beds in the ward. By the time the 2 little fellows were wheeled out of the emergency room, their dislocations had already been fixed. Xiao Yichen's injuries were slightly more serious, so they still needed to be fixed with bandages for a few days. The two little munchkins were dislocated and had some abrasions. Xiao Yichen had hit his head in the car and had a slight concussion. However, it wasn't serious. He would recover after a few days of rest. The doctor patiently told Yun Shirshir about some taboos, and Yun Shirshir listened attentively. Throughout the entire process, Mu Yichen's face was tense. Even when his arm was reattached, his brows did not crease at all. He looked very brave. Yun Tianyu, on the other hand, could not bear the pain. However, when he saw Mu Yichen's strong look, he instinctively felt that he was too strong. With him as an example, no matter how much pain Yun Tianyu was in, he was too embarrassed to shed tears. Hence, he did not cry like other children. The doctor and nurses were surprised. A 6-year-old child usually did not have the ability to endure pain.